people joining here on this session, Invest for Cashflow. Welcome, everyone. If you know any other professional, anyone else that you know that is wants to be up with the current market, wants to give insight, wants to give their opinion on what's going on in the economy and in real estate, forward them this link, have them participate on this session. We're gonna go. We're gonna wait 5 minutes for people to get in. The link is right here. You'll see the link on the actual chat. You can copy it, paste it. Just invite anyone that you know that you feel this would be a great session for. We got such great speakers that are going to be blessing us today, at this session. So we want to make sure that everyone gets the benefit from this stuff, right? What is who you are, and it's going to take you further. It's going to make you advance in whatever you're doing. We are here in a new year. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope this year is a prosperous one for you. God bless you with everything that you desire, in this new year, and what a great way to start off this new year with this Invest for Cash Flow session. We're gonna just give it a few minutes for more and more people to join on. But I see some of our speakers are on here already. Hello, Andy. Hello, Serena. Hey, Matt. How's it going? We have Cameron on here. Okay, we pretty much got our speakers on here as well. Thank you for being online. Invite your guests. The link is over there. You got the Zoom link as well. Invite them, have them come and join us on this session. I'm also inviting more people onto the session right now as well. Because this right now the community is pretty much where the growth is. If we could go out and just share this with people and let people get insight on how to invest in real estate, how to invest in other businesses, how to invest in the markets, how to even, if you are buying a house, we have a home inspector that's going to be giving us all kinds of knowledge. Everyone has expertise in their field. Everyone has gone through experiences, right? And we can all learn from it, right? And if you go with the learner first mentality and you're always looking to learn, then you're going to be way ahead of the game. We're going to be way ahead of the game. And that's the objective, what we're looking for, on these sessions. These are monthly sessions, and I'm grateful, for all of the speakers that, are willing to just participate with us, because they want to share with you value. They want to give you insight on, things that you may be experiencing, or maybe things that you're currently going through right now. They could give you the shortcuts, right? And, so I thank everyone for joining us today on this Invest for Cash Flow session, right? And make sure, again, you invite your guests, all right? Invite your guests, because of course, the information is there. We need people to hear the information. It's so important that people go out and listen to information so they can share it with their peers. If you're a professional, if you're a realtor, if you're a mortgage broker, insurance broker, whatever it is that you are, this is the place that you want to be. This is prime time TV. A lot of people may be on Netflix, watching a movie. You can watch that movie later. That's on demand. This here is live. We're here live on Invest for Cash Flow, and we see more people are coming in, and which is amazing. And continue to invite your guests. All right, invite your guests. Send them the link. I'm posting a link over here inside this session. We're going to be going for 3 hours, but it's going to seem like 3 minutes. All right, that's how much information we're going to get. It's going to be jam-packed with information. If you're on any of our past sessions, you see like our speakers don't hold back. Our speakers give it all. We're here to share every single thing that help you in your life, your business, in your career, so make sure that you're inviting other people, because that's a giving attitude. If you're going to get all of that, why not your peers get that? Why not your colleagues get that as well? So the link has been shared in the text box, and we'll continue to share it throughout the night. Invite your guests onto the session, Invest for Cash Flow. And we're going to be going in about 3 minutes. We'll get going. My name is Richard Addo-Kessie. I'm based in Brampton, Ontario, Canada, and hopefully not the 51st state. But at the same time, I say, "Oh, Canada, loud and proud." And in this Canadian market, and in Canada in general, we're seeing real estate is one of the main drivers of our economy. Right. And, that's why, platforms like this platform, I feel is important to grow because, Of course, on stage, in person, those are great. Networking events are great. But at the comfort of your home, wherever you are, you can just come on and log into the session every month to get more information. But not just that. What over here on live, you get to talk one-to-one with our speakers. If you have questions, direct questions with our speakers, you can message them directly and unmute yourself and just ask the question. There's not many places that you have like that where you can just connect directly with professionals in different industry. So our speakers today, we have Matt McDowell. Matt McDowell, he's going to be talking about creating the foundation and discipline to create a generation of wealth. We have Andy Armstrong, who's going to be talking about the introduction to property inspection, right? Unlocking the value through assessment, right? We have Isack, Ghebreyesus, who's going to talk about the strategies for financial transformation, right? Expert tips to save taxes and grow your wealth, right? And then how's the real estate market? We want to get into a little discussion. Every session we get into a little discussion, and we want everyone to participate in that because obviously everyone's seeing the real estate market from a different lens, right? So it's important that, we get your view. And of course, we're going to look at the stats and the numbers as well, right? But then we have Serena Holmes, who's going to be talking about due diligence for passive real estate investors. So what is the work behind the work, right? You're going to learn about that. And we have Cameron Manning, who's going to be talking about smart investing in Greater Vancouver, strategies to maximize your ROI in tight cash flow markets, right? Which is definitely Vancouver. The GTA market is like that as well. Alberta's booming, but these strategies are great to know because imagine if it works in difficult strategies, it's going to work in easy areas as well, right? So stay tuned. That's what we're going to be launching in the session right now. We're just getting people on the session. We're asking you to invite your people. When we post it on social media, repost it, right? And get people onto the session, right? Okay, we have more people that are joining us. Welcome everyone that's joining here. If you are here, you can tell us even what city you're joining from, what province, and even the States, man. We want to open this up to North America as well, right? Yes, Andy said last 2 years, Calgary has been multi-offer bidding war. That in GTA, we were in that was 2022, for us, and 2023 a bit, and then it's fizzled out, but we're starting to see it actually come back, so we're going to be talking about that in our session, that we talk house real estate market, right? So we're going to get started with this session. And I actually, Manitoba's in the house as well. We love that. Get your people on from Manitoba, from Edmonton, from Quebec, from Alberta, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Windsor, everywhere in Ontario and the US, because right now what I'm finding is a lot of people are even starting to invest in the US. We had speakers for our past sessions that are in Texas, and they're talking about how they have many Canadian investors. We have speakers that are from Florida, and many Canadian investors are investing out there as well, right? So we want to open this up to every single person, right? Getting into the session, the first thing that I really want to get into, which I feel is the most important thing in everything, right? Success is 80% mindset and a 20% strategy, right? And I have a program called the MAP book, the Mind Assistance Program, right? And the program is, like-minded people who are ambitious, who have goals set for themselves, right? To participate in subconscious programming, right? So it's an annual program every year, right? And this book is a power pack book, right? Which is infused with your principles and your laws, right? And I really want to get that out there because it's all about your mindset and the shift that you're having in your mind, right? The strategies we're going to be sharing today on the session, for investor cash flow. But the mindset, we want to make sure everyone's in the right mindset, as we're going in 2025 and even in future months as well, right? So do you believe in God, right? And this is such a powerful question because there's so much that is out there available to us, right? And for us to attain it, that believing in a higher power is so important because it shows that everything is within your reach. Every single thing that you want to do in this world, you are able to do, right? And you just need the combination and the key. And where's that combination and key? It's your mindset. It's about the omnipotent source connected with yourself, right? And staying plugged into our program, the MAP book, is God's design for you, right? Because your faith is how you stay connected with the unlimited source. As we plug into source, we're able to download the programming that we have been sent here to accomplish, right? We have many thoughts, over 70,000 thoughts per day, right? And where are these thoughts coming from? These thoughts are coming from our internal source that's given us direction, and many times we're not catching them, right? So with the map book, what it does is it activates your brain neurons to shape the life that you desire through subconscious programming, right? It brings you up the emotional guidance scale as you scale upward and start actually understanding that we go through three. Our thoughts create our feelings create our actions. So our feelings are so important that our feelings are moving up to the highest part of the emotional guidance scale, which is joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, and love, right? And that is your true essence. That's your true source. So coming out to this session, of course, we're going to talk about strategy, but it's very important that this is the feeling that you're feeling all the time. You're emanating love into this world, right? And you're projecting that out there, and that's what is returning to you and raising your brainwave and the frequency of, how you're actually operating in this world. We are so powerful as we are connected. And as we connect, we want to make sure that, we're channeling the right energy, right? So the map book, whole point of the program is, for the next 365 days that you carry it as one of your daily essentials. It's with you. You're plugging in your intentions, right? And that's a key thing. It's a form of meditation, right? And meditation, people hear it and they think it's woo and all this kind of stuff, but it's actually our true essence. We're going inside of ourselves. We're getting our answers from inside of ourselves, and we're delivering into this world, right? And, through the program, these are the different sections of it. We have the affirmatory declaration, which is the big picture, right? And, for you to really go inside and discover what does the big picture look like for you, right? It's kind of like a written vision board, right? And then we go to the year. So this year, how are you planning out this year? What are your goals for this year? What are the things that you want to accomplish this year, right? Then the book's read. How are you growing your mental? How are you growing this consciousness that's out there? How are you collecting this consciousness, right? And that's through the books that you read, and also podcasts. We're in the podcast era. So what podcasts are you taking in this year? What books are you reading or listening to, right? And then we go to Focus 11. So each month, we have a Focus 11, and the Focus 11 is 11 parts of our life that we focus on to create wealth. Mental, spiritual, physical, relationship, financial, yourself, contribution, new, business, learn, and discipline. And every month, we do something that relates to each of those aspects of life. We have a goal that's set each month. For example, our financial goal. We have a goal for this month for our relationships, right? So, and then at the end of the month, it's out of 11. We're going to score yourself as the session goes on. The month goes on in your Focus 11. These are check boxes. As you're accomplishing these goals, you're going to be checking them out each month. You're checking these out, right? And based on the end of the month, whatever you get, you just post your score right here in the bottom. So say, for example, over there, we have 8 in there. You're going to put 8 out of 11, right? That's how you did this month. And then next month, you have a new Focus 11, right? And then, but we break it down to the week, so say if you're on here, say you're real estate investors, how many owners are you going to contact? How many agents are you going to reach out to? You're looking for properties, right? How many properties are you going to look at this month, right? When you're setting your goals, it's very important that you're being intentional, right? Whatever goal it is, it's related to you, and then we break them down, right? So whatever you set for the month, you're going to break it down into smaller increments for the week. And then we have the critical 7, which is out of 7 per day. There's 365 in the program, and then of the weeks, 52 weeks, and then 12 months of for the year. So this is the MapBook program. We have people that are enrolling in, and we're looking for more people that are on the same vibration and frequency, the people that have goals and ambitions, and it's all coming from you. We just have the format. These are universal laws and principles that were here before us. They'll be here after us. But within our program, it allows you to apply them every day, right? So that's pretty much MapBook program. I'd love to give a little intro on it because it's something that is doing amazing work. We're getting great testimonials for the program, and we're just opening up for everyone to know about as well. All right. So now we're going to be getting into our speakers for the day, right? And our speakers are experts in different areas, and I really want you to take notes. Every session that we have, I have my notebook. I'm taking notes, right? So this is an educational thing, but we also are here to give entertainment. So our first speaker that we have with us today is Matt McDowell, right? Matt McDowell is going to be talking about creating foundation of principles to create generation of wealth. Matt, are you with us?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, all right, Matt. So talk to us, man. Tell us more about like what do you mean by this?
Yeah. Well, good. First off, good evening, everybody. I'm out here in the East Coast in the United States, so probably a little bit later for me than some of y'all. But really, like today, I just wanted to kind of go over a few things that really everybody in the world needs, and some people just don't know where to start. Some people just don't know how to get to the access that they need, and that's going to be creating that generational wealth and the discipline. The biggest thing when it comes to finances really is having the discipline and building the habits to create not only that generational wealth, but wealth that you can use and utilize for yourself, for your kids, for your grandkids, and beyond. In fact, statistically, about 70% of people lose their generational wealth to their second generation, and 90% are going to lose it to their third generation. So it's really how can we create a bulletproof financial plan that's going to make that generational wealth last generations beyond that third and fourth and fifth generation. Um, but I mean, first, like we really just need to define what generational wealth is, and that's generational wealth refers to the assets passed down from one generation to the next. So that's going to be your stocks, that's going to be real estate, that could be bonds, businesses, anything that's going to add value over time. Um, but you've really got to find out like, hey, if we build a foundation, we've got to start somewhere. Think of it kind of like building a house. Without a foundation on a house, your house is going to fall. That's not bulletproof. So as when we get into the bad and ugly of the finances in the world, there's so much confusion, there's so much just unconfidence out there. Stock markets go down, they go up. New administrations and our presidencies, those can somewhat affect the economy, but over time, it's really how can we, like I said before, and I can't stress this enough, is how can we create that generational wealth now at a younger age and keep that wealth building over time. And really building the foundation, it starts with financial literacy. It's essential for every family members to understand basic financial principles. Setting financial goals is the next step. And those both should be short term, long term, and midterm. Because I'm a big believer in goals and visions. And without having a vision and a goal for your life, you you're not really going to go anywhere. How do you expect to go somewhere when you don't have stuff that's set up for you to hit? Um, Budgeting and saving, those are fundamental. It's cliche and it sounds easy, but it's really not as easy as you might think. Most people are saving under 10% of their income that they get on a monthly basis. Some of my best clients are saving 20 to 30%. I practice all my clients and my prospects to save to build to that 20 to 30%. Because like I said before, it's about building a habit and a discipline. You may not be able to save 20 to 30% of your income right off the bat, but if you're starting at 3%, 5%, or 7%, you're at least building that habit and the discipline to do it. And once you have built that, you're only going to continue to grow and build more on top of that. Um, and then really just another just fundamental piece is just having an emergency fund. A lot of people in the world today do not have money that is set aside for an emergency. And having, at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses built up is really going to give you a good cushion to remove some of the stress that we have on a daily basis. Um, I'm a strong believer in God and Christ, and I personally think that like he's my number one. You can only have one or the other. Money cannot be your number one and God be your number one at the same time. So what I mean by that is money helps. It does help. It does bring security in life, but it's not going to make you happy. You're not going to be happy being a millionaire or a billionaire. Most people say you will. I mean, I don't find greatness in money. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
$6 million.
Really, this kind of the next thing that I wanted to go over a little bit was just some investment strategies and protecting your wealth. Um, when it comes to investing, diversification is key. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to put all your eggs in the stock market and not have anything else that's going to be more diverse later in life. So what that means is it means spreading your investments across different asset classes to manage risk. Understand the difference between the long-term and the short-term investments. The long-term investments are going to be your retirement accounts. Those are going to be your 401k, Roth IRAs. You've got to understand that that is not a get rich overnight type of deal. That's a long-term play. The stock market will always go up and it will always go down. The S&P 500 for the last 19 years had a 14 to 15% rate of return. Now, back in 2008, our economy crashed and our stock market was down, 19%. A lot of people get scared when that happens and they start to sell. The point, I'm sure everyone here has heard this, but the goal is to buy low, sell high. So back to diversification, if we are diversified and what we are investing in and our assets, well, when the stock market's down, there's going to be other buckets that we can go access capital if we need to use that capital for, say, real estate, business ventures, so on and so forth. And then really having that diversification is what is going to protect your wealth the most. Protecting your wealth is just as important as growing it. You cannot grow your wealth at all times if you don't have your wealth protected. Insurance plays a very, very critical role here. Life insurance, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, all those are going to help against the unforeseen events. As grim as it is, we are all going to die one day. We don't know when that day is going to come, but we cannot leave behind generational wealth if we do not have these big pieces built up into our plan. Back to what I was saying earlier, a house works, you have a foundation on a house. That's what keeps your house built, and that's what keeps it standing over time. The same thing happens with your financial picture. You cannot invest, you cannot grow your wealth if you do not have pieces that are going to protect your family, your assets, your income, and yourself. And then really another big one that a lot of people don't really handle until it's too late is that estate planning. That involves creating wills, trusts, setting up a power of attorney. This ensures that your assets are going to be distributed according to your wishes. And a lot of that, you're going to have some tax strategies. At the end of 2025, in America, we are going to have a tax laws and job acts that is going to be sunsetting. That can be very, very detrimental to someone's estate. If your estate is over $13 million, you're going to be paying half of that in taxes. So back to what I was saying before, is the whole goal is to create this foundation, to set up these foundational pieces to where we can minimize the amount of tax that we were paying to the IRS that we already do and leave that generational wealth standing for as long as we possibly can. And then another big piece is going to be that creating that legacy piece. All right. The generational piece is what's going to be passed down generations, but the legacy involves more than this financial assets. For instance, charitable giving not only are benefits society, but it's also provides tax benefits as well. Family growing structures can help manage across different generations. It's important to set up family meetings and involve all of your family members into what the whole plan is. Write it out and make sure everybody is understanding the same thing over time. That's the most crucial piece, is just having an open communication, because, I'll tell you a quick little story. My dad, when I was 2 years old, he bought life insurance for me. And I was able to use that life insurance when I got into my 18, 19 years. And I was able to use that life insurance to borrow money against it to go and put that money into my college fund and go to college. And now I'm basically just paying myself back what I borrowed in that policy. So now I'm growing money in two different places. Now, a lot of you may think, well, I just threw money away for college. But in my world, I grew that money. I profited after paying money through college because now I am able to provide, like I said, something that the entire world needs. And I'm able to help and give clarity to those people who are unsure or who are feeling unconfident or stressed because of their financial picture. And then really just the last piece is, and most important piece is that discipline and the mindset to it. Consistency is the cornerstone of building generational wealth. You want to save and invest regularly, even if it's a small amount, $8 a month. It doesn't seem like a lot, but once again, it's building a habit and that mindset to continue doing it and to grow more as you succeed in life. Um, Patience is also essential. Just like I said before, you invest in the stock market, it's not a long-term game. It's more so, well, sorry, it's not a short-term game, it's more of a long-term game. And then generational wealth is built over decades. It's not built overnight. So, all these get rich overnight schemes that we see, on social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, that's not viable. It's not going to work. Um, and finding a professional that can help you, set up these powers of attorneys, wills, trust, help you start investing, help you build these foundational pieces to your plan. That's what's going to help you stay on track, and that's what's going to help you stay informed with market changes, with new updates, with new laws sunsetting or new laws being enacted in the government. But just kind of to recap all of that, we covered. I mean, I really just wanted to cover the importance of understanding that generational wealth, building a strong financial foundation, investment strategies, protecting your wealth, and creating that legacy and the discipline and mindset that is required to achieve all of that. Um, so I just will say thank you all so much for your time and attention, and I hope you guys found this session valuable.
That was great, man. That was a great session. You went in detail, right, with everything. So keep in mind, everyone, Matt is from the U.S. What state are you from?
I'm from Tennessee, so I'm licensed in all 50 states in America. But most of my home office is in Milwaukee. I just work out of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, all right. So everything that you're saying applies to Canada as well. You know, so but we are a sovereign country, just like we want to be Canada. I'm gonna throw that
But
joke out there because that's the talks right now. But amazing presentation, and like all the details that you're going in, I'm definitely aligned with. Does anyone have any questions for Matt? Yeah, so not everyone, everyone's definitely on the same page. Oh, Canada.
I have a question. I have a
Yes,
question for you, Matt.
go ahead.
So
Reintroduce
my
yourself,
my
Matt.
first answer question is, what are your thoughts with regards to investing in like whole life policies on that when it comes to like investing in life insurance? Because you were talking
yeah,
about life insurance and that then.
Yeah, so well, really, man, it kind of depends. Like I'm a firm believer in if you're going to invest money or if you're going to buy a whole life insurance policy or even a term life insurance policy, you really need to do your research and find the best companies. Find the companies that have the most historical data and the most sound financial footprint. Um, and also, it just depends on the structure of the life insurance. There's a ton of people out there that are structuring life insurance the way that personally, I don't structure it because it makes your premium too expensive. It takes longer for your equity to build up and to
Mm,
get kind of meet the amount of premium that you've put into it. So really, to answer your question the best I can, it depends on the structure. It depends on the company. The company I'm contracted with the most is Northwestern Mutual. They've been
okay.
around since the 1800s, and we have a 167-year track record of paying out dividends to our policy
Mm,
owners who own that whole life policy. Now, this past year, we paid out $8.2 billion in dividend payouts. So, like I said, like I mean, find the most financially sound insurance company because in America, Northwestern is the top financially sound company in the nation. You've got that with Johnson and Johnson and Microsoft. Those are the only three companies who are triple A credit rated. So personally, all of my policies are through Northwestern because they have the strongest and longest lasting
Yeah,
company, and they are going to be more likely to pay out if we went into a recession.
makes sense. Totally makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Juliana. I'm talking from, I'm speaking from Canada. Yeah, okay. So I have that kind of insurance policy for my children, but it's like they have it for a couple of years now. Do
Mhm.
you think it's a good idea for them to go in and take something from it to start some investment, or what is advice from you?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say it depends. So kind of like I said, when I was a kid, I was 2 years old, my dad got a policy on me, and by the time I reached 18, 19 years old, I had about six, $700,000 in there that I could borrow against. So what I would tell you is it really depends on how much more you're putting into the policy or how much the policy is built up over time. There's some, there's standard whole life policies that are going to grow at whatever company dividend rate is. And then there's VUL policies, which is that variable universal life policy that's going to be tied to that stock market account. Um, it also depends on what age are they. Are they in their teens? How old are they?
Yeah, they are in their 20s, and the older one is in her 30s now. But I did for them, I think, a couple of years, like 10 years or 15
Okay.
years ago.
You said 10 to 15 years ago is
10,
when you had those
yeah,
policies?
yeah,
Okay. And then you said that they're in their 20s. Is that right?
yeah.
Okay. Well, what I would do is I would get with your current, broker or your current life insurance agent, and I would talk about how much money, what is the accumulated value that we have in these policies, and can we borrow against them? And if we can, what is the percentage that we can borrow against? And if you cannot borrow against them, how much cash can we pull out? And the way that works when it comes to borrowing the money is one, I would figure out what they want to do. Do they want to buy a business? Do they want to go to school? What would they want to do with that money other than just go spend it on cars or luxury things or consumer debt? Um, but I would really talk and figure out like, hey, is it going to be worth it to take the physical cash out or would it be worth it to borrow it? Because the ultra wealthy people in the world, what they are doing is they are borrowing against their own assets to create more profit than what it costs them to service the debt that they are taking. And what that is called is it's called interest rate or real estate arbitrage. So personally, what I would do with that is to answer this a little bit quicker is like I said, I would figure out how much value we have in these contracts, and I would see if we can borrow against them. Because if you're borrowing against the contracts, you're growing money in two places at once. You're still continuing to grow money in the life insurance account, but now you've got this sum of money that's completely tax free, that's lump sum that you can go use and dump it into real estate or dump it into a business. And over time, you will profit more than what you borrowed, and you just pay yourself back to where you have more borrowing power in your later years. And what that does over time is that creates an infinite banking concept. I
Mhm.
hope that helps.
Oh yeah, yeah, it helps. Yeah, I just wanted to know that, yeah, if they borrow, they can borrow from that and use it for investment aside, so that
Yes,
it will grow money. Yeah, now you have already explained everything to me. They are not borrowing it to for any luxury items like cars or anything, but I
yeah,
just want, yeah, to help
yeah,
them to maybe borrow it and invest it in something else.
exactly, exactly.
Yes.
And
All
what's
right.
the best thing about that is when you borrow against the money that is inside of your contracts, there's no there's no like period that you got to pay that money off. You don't have to pay
Mm-hmm.
it off on the insurance company's terms. You pay it off on your terms.
Yeah.
And so what that does is like if you let's just say that you borrow $250,000 from a contract. Well, if you've got $1 million death benefit, you never pay that 250 back. They will just subtract that 250,000 from your million and pay out the 750 to your beneficiaries. And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm saying you want to pay it back, because once you pay it back, you're just giving yourself more wiggle room to borrow more when it grows.
Okay.
Like for me personally, I will take money out of my life insurance contracts and I will go dump it into real estate. And then I will take my profits, pay myself back, and then keep the remainder and use that for different investments.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Andy, do you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned when you borrow against the life insurance, it's tax free. But if you take that money, then invest it, and you're making a profit from that, I would imagine you'd be taxed on that profit though, right?
Yes, so there is only two places in the entire world where you can have tax-free growth. One is a Roth IRA, but that is capped at $7,000 a year. So someone who's making, 500,000, 600,000 a year, they might want to dump more money into something to where they can use it as a tax purpose. So like with the overfunded life insurance or the life insurance contracts, you could dump 60, 70, $80,000 a year into that contract. And what's going to happen is, for example, Northwestern's overfunded policies are going at about 5.5 to 7% right now. Well, all that money that's growing is going to be tax free if you borrow that money, because you're physically not taking the cash out of the contract. So I'll give you a quick little example. Let's just say we have $250,000 in a contract. We pull that out. We go invest 200,000. We buy a property. We've spent $50,000 to revamp the property. And then in a perfect world, we'll just say that we sell the property for $500,000. Well, what you've just done is you've basically you've profited $250,000 without using a single dime of your own capital from your bank account. So what you would do is you would pay that 250 back to the contract. Now you've got 250,000 that you can go put into more real estate or more investments, or funnel it back into that life insurance contract. And yes, you would have to pay tax. Like if you bought it, if you profited off real estate, there's going to be taxes there. If you threw it in the stock market, you're going to have capital gains taxes. But something cool that you can do with stock accounts is that you can take a securities line of credit on those accounts. And what that is you're basically borrowing against your investment account, where you can borrow up to 70% because the stock market is banking on a 30% negative return. What you're doing there is you're leveraging money instead of pulling the physical cash out, because at that point you're growing money in two places at once instead of growing money in one place at once when you go get a loan from, we'll say the bank or a credit card company.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. This is what we're getting here in this session. Invest for cash flow. Matt McDowell, thank you so much. Information packed. If you don't mind, just letting us know how to reach out to you, how to stay in contact with you. If anyone is looking to obtain your services or have a sit down, where to reach you.
Yeah, of course. What I can do is I can definitely I'll just put all my Instagram handles and all my contact information in the chat box. So if you guys just want to reach out by text, you guys can give me a call. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So I'll make sure it's all in there. That way, if anyone has any more questions, any concerns, comments, you can always text me.
All right, good stuff. Thank you so much. That's Matt McDowell, everybody. And up next, we have our next speaker. He gave you a little voice already, so you heard his voice already with the questions. Very intelligent guy. If anyone here is in real estate, and which most of us are, it doesn't matter what business you are. As you heard, even Matt say in his business, he invests in real estate, right? And one thing with real estate is, with the real estate that you're buying, do you know that the shape that it's in? Do you know the condition it's in? So many people go and invest in real estate, and then a nightmare happens after that because it wasn't inspected properly. They don't know what's wrong with it. And Andy is an expert inspector. So he's the person that you call in, make sure everything's up to code. He's going to be talking about introduction to property inspections. So Andy, welcome, man. Thank you for joining us on Invest for Cashflow.
I'm up already. Oh, geez.
Yeah,
I was
man.
like last on the list. Best. Okay.
Sure. So introduce yourself, and yeah, it's your time, man.
All right. So, what we're going to talk about is maximizing your cash flow through smart property inspections. Why get an inspection? Okay. So, my name is Andy Armstrong, and I'm a certified master inspector, and I specialize in investment properties. I have commercial training, so I can do multi unit buildings, 14 plexes, whatever, 5 plexes, even condos. I can inspect every type of property. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain to you how inspections can protect your cash flow and ensure your investments are profitable. So we're going to focus on the risks and how we can reduce those risks when you're looking at property. We're going to identify hidden costs. I see a lot more behind the scenes when I'm doing my inspections than when you take your client or when you're looking at investment groups, because I have certain tools that you guys don't have. And I also have a lot of knowledge in what to look for. And I'm going to be sharing some of that knowledge with you guys today. So, why are inspections critical for cash flow and investments? It's to help find those hidden repairs that may come up in the future. We're going to make sure you understand future costs before you do a purchase. We're going to explain to you how to budget for things like your HVAC and your roof, plumbing, electrical, any type of capital expenses that you're going to need to maintain to make sure you have a profitable cash flow. Another thing is that a lot of people might not think of is tenant retention. When you have a safe place, it's well maintained, and you keep the tenants happy, then you'll have less people moving out on you. So spending less money on turnovers and vacancy costs. We're going to give you accurate projections on deferred maintenance, things that may inflate your operating expenses, and that will reduce your net income. So what are the
Hello, I can't hear you, Andy. You muted yourself.
How long ago?
Oh, you're good. You're good. You just did, man. Don't worry. We're quick with it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're gonna focus on the areas on what we look for it in a home. And like our good man Matt said about foundations, we're gonna look at the structure. So when we're looking at the foundation, we're checking to make sure there's no big cracks in the foundation, making sure your basement's staying dry. When we have these type of issues, we're going to have repairs anywhere from 10 up to maybe $50,000 to fix. So that's something that's huge that you want to make sure you're aware of. Sometimes it's worth the fix. It depends on your property you're looking at. Roofs, those are also expensive repairs. What are we looking at on the roof is making sure that there's good lifespan left. You can tell when the roof is starting to go by the shingles curling, the granules on the shingles start deteriorating, and this can also lead to leaks. So not only is it going to cost you to replace the roof, it's going to cost repairs on fixing water damages. How are your walls and floors? Are they stable? Making sure there's no bowing. These are things that we are going to be looking for to make sure we're keeping your money in your pocket. Mechanical systems. So your HVAC, that's your furnace and your air conditioning. I'm not too sure exactly what's down in the States there, Matt, but up here in Canada, we definitely use furnaces. So I'll be checking the functionality. I'll be checking to make sure we're getting a lot of heat in the right areas of the rooms. I'm going to check the age. Older furnaces, they're easier to maintain. When something breaks down, it's usually, a few $100s. These newer high efficiency furnaces, they're breaking down all the time and they're a lot more expensive. They have corrosion in them from condensating. So that's what I'm looking for, is to see what the condition is in. We're looking at, $6,000 to $10,000 to replace those systems. Plumbing, test for leaks. A lot of things that go unnoticed is, that you got your bathroom and there's stuff. People put all kinds of stuff in there and you're not noticing the leak behind there, which is dripping down into your basement, and now your ceiling needs to replace. So I'm going to be looking for that kind of stuff. What type of material is the plumbing made out of? Galvanized piping. It rusts from the inside and it might not be leaking today, but give it a couple of years and you might have a burst. So we recommend spending a little bit of money on replacing that instead of a whole lot of money on fixing up the damages. Electrical. Story on my first home I bought. Electrical was in pretty good condition. However, it was only a 60 amp service. Worked fine for the small home, but insurance, they like to see 100 amps and they might not insure you. So those are one of those things that, you may not know your insurance company requires that 100 amps. Now you're spending a couple of grand replacing that electrical panel, even though it was fine condition, your insurance company requires you. Same with water heaters. I'm going to be looking at those to make sure they're good condition, but if they're 10 years or older, sometimes your insurance will require you to replace that, and that can cost anywhere between $4,000 to $2,000. Just deferred maintenance stuff, looking at the overall condition of the home. Has it been neglected? Is there paint peeling? Are the gutters clogged? Poor landscaping? These are all things that add up in the beginning. Things you might not notice when you only get a half an hour when you're looking at the property. So when you hire me, I'm there for 3 hours. I'm spending that time looking at all these little things for you. Windows, are they leaking? Has the seals been broken? Windows can be very expensive to replace. And again, back to tenants, you want to make sure that they're safe. Handrails, staircases, walkways, is everything hazard free? The last thing you want to do is have a tenant have an accident and getting sued. I don't know about Canada, we're pretty good up here, but Matt, down in the States, you hear about that all the time, people getting sued left and right. Is there proper egress in the windows? 543 square inches is our standard today, and not less than 15 inches. If it's smaller than that, the municipality may require you to redo that window to the proper size, and that can be a couple of grand. Other operating costs that we help, predict on lifespans of your appliances, your fridge, your stove, your wash machines. Typical age is about 10, 13 years, and that's when things start breaking down. I'm renting a home right now. I've been here for 2 years, and we've already the landlord had to replace the washer, the dishwasher, the stove. I fixed the fridge, so lucky I'm handy. But these are expenses that you may not foresee when you're looking at the place. Things that I catch. Water, drainage. Okay. When you're looking at older homes before 1990, one thing that does come up sometimes people ask is about asbestos. If you are renovating, then that's something you may want to have tested, because if you're cutting it up, it gets into the air And even though you're got your PPE on, you may be breathing in some asbestos spores. So it's highly recommended to have those type of buildings tested if they're before 1990. If you're not renovating, then you're fine because all that asbestos is locked in the materials. As long as you're not disturbing it, you're not going to have an issue. A little story on why to get an inspection, even in condos. I had a realtor buy one and didn't notice the toilet was loose. Typically, you just need to tighten it down, but the flange was broken. And they're, a $50-$100 part. Unfortunately, it was broken way down, and the plumber had to spend a lot of time and to replace it because it was in concrete. Ended up costing her about $1,200. Now, if she would have had an inspector point that out, she could have wrote in her negotiations to have it fixed, and that would have saved her the $1,000 she spent on that toilet. Some other things to consider to help your tenant save money if they're paying the bill, or if it's a bigger unit and you're paying the bill, is fixing up little things that are not very energy efficient, like leaky windows, making sure they're caulked up, weather stripping, weather seals around your doors. You may want to invest $1,000 in adding insulation. That'll pay for itself, making sure there's good airflow in the attic. Yeah, so those are the kind of things that I'll be helping you look for so that you can make an informative decision on that investment property. My typical charge is $500 and up, depending on the size. And that $500 should end up saving you a lot of money because you can negotiate a lot of those things that we find. And then also you're going to be aware of all the deferred costs that may arise. So the idea here is to have an inspection done so you can invest smarter and help that inspection work for your bottom line. I'm now open for questions.
All right, man. Great session. Great session. Very informative.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel it's an important part of the whole real estate game. I just had a property that closed today, right? And that was a big part of it. A big part was getting inspections because there's so many things behind the scenes, and you have to notice certain things in order to know whether there's a problem. So if you don't mind, some things that you notice, because obviously, in many cases, people try to cover up some things, even though it should be available. But what are some signs that you notice? And then it takes you that further step to look ahead and discover something that may be a little more, I guess. Go ahead.
One thing, and we talked about this in our quick little interview, is attic rain. That is a huge expense if not caught early. And what you can look for are rusting water signs on the ceiling. That's signs that moisture is getting up into the attic, and you need to have that resolved quickly before it causes further damage. Once you start seeing that rusting, you know there's likely an issue up there. The attic hatch allows a lot of moisture to go up through. So that's a quick $20 fix to put better weather stripping on there and make it airtight. Airflow too. A lot of these homes that are being built nowadays side by side. So one thing you can do is step back, have a look at the roof, and make sure you have proper venting on both the bottom, left and right, and at the top. If you don't, then odds are you're going to get attic rain. I live in a lovely community called Mahogany in Calgary, and that's probably 80% of the houses here. They're not designed properly. Even though it meets the code, because the code says balanced, it's still not best practice. Some of the signs you can look for in the basement for water intrusion: check the baseboards, see if they're swelling, see if there's any rust on any of the nails. If the basement's opened, then you can have a look, see if there's any cracks. I'll see cracks on the outside, but then on the inside, it's completely developed. And now you can't tell for sure. Typical hairline cracks are a non-issue, especially with structure. But I have seen it where on the inside, I've seen a crack and you can see signs of where moisture's come through. I always test for moisture, and then it's really kind of up to the client to have that repaired. They're usually about $1,000. They inject some filler that completely seals it. I've seen it where, like you said, they try to hide it. They just put something quickly over top of it, and it's like, I'm not going to notice that. It needs to be properly sealed. Other things to look for, just an overall condition on the outside of the house, making sure it's plumb and straight. Sometimes you'll see homes leaning, the roof. Sometimes you'll see it sagging. Those are good signs to look for. Those are the major kind of red flags to look for. Sometimes if it's a two-story home and you see staining on the ceiling on the first floor, odds are you have a plumbing leak or have had one. I use a thermal camera, so when I run the water, I can see those leaks. I mean, as a realtor, it wouldn't hurt. You can buy those ones that you can just put on the bottom of your phone and you do a quick scan. They're a couple $100.
Okay, you're going in detail. I believe
I know.
Cameron has a question here. He has his hand up. But thanks, man. Thanks for the detail, though. We appreciate it.
You had a question,
Hey, Andy. Yeah, quick question for you here. So, I know you're in Calgary. Obviously, out here in Vancouver, we have a lot of homes that have poly B piping. Just wondering if you have any experience with that, and if you can
Oh
speak
yes,
to issues with
we
poly
have a
B.
lot of that here. The worst thing I can suggest is have your client go and Google it, because all you're gonna see is ticking time bomb. Unfortunately, maybe it's different in Vancouver depending on your water and what you treat it with, but in Calgary, I have stuff and there's 30 years old. I like to say if it hasn't blown by now, it's usually not going to. This is another half an hour chat. I'm more than happy to. I got your contact information. I'll send you my link. Maybe even I'll post it in the chat, and it's Poly B explained. So really it's not as big as a deal as most people think it is. Plumbers will try to scare you into having it replaced. That's how they make their money. And then we can have a discussion on that later too, because I'd be curious to see what it's like out there. I mean, I have inspectors out there too, so. And Richard, yes, lots of information. There's like over 400 things I check in homes, and even more in like investment properties with multi dwellings. I could literally sit here and talk all day, but I just wanted to go over the importance of having it for cash flow, go over some of the red flags. If anybody has any questions about homes, buildings, you name it, I don't care if you're in Vancouver, call me. My phone number is right there. QR code is there from my webpage. I'm more than happy to help you guys out.
Hi, man. And, and that's what this session is. That's why it's Investor Cashflow 101, because obviously everyone here is an expert. And, for a 25-minute time slot, you're not going to be able to give everything, So that's why we have the 101. And then we want you to connect with our speakers, go connect with them. Like, these are people who gave their time right now to present to you, to give everything they know. You want to know more? Make sure you make that direct connect. Andy, thank you so much. Do you have one last question? We see another hand up. Go ahead, unmute yourself, ask your question, or you can type in the box if you want as well. Armjit?
Hello. Hi, Andy. I have a
Hello.
question. Like recently, I was in a meeting, in a training, and the guy was telling like one real estate agent get fine. He got a major big fine because he wrote roof changed in his listing. So
Oh,
actually the roof was not changed. It was only the shingles changed. So what is the difference? What is the right term to be used when we are writing in the listing?
Absolutely. That is a very good question because a roof is the whole structure. We're talking the trusses, the rafters, the sheathing, the shingles, the airflow, the venting, everything. Whereas they should have put shingles because the shingles pertain just to the shingles.
For ordinary people, they don't understand what is the difference. So they just put, oh, roof changed like 2 years before or 1 year before. And then the
That's
realtor, he wrote, oh, roof changed so and so
yeah,
1 year
that's an
before.
unfortunate mishap, but hopefully the realtor can like you guys are hopefully learning from the inspectors on what the difference is between what a roof is or what an attic is or what a shingle is. That yeah, definitely a bad misunderstanding. So sometimes I'll notice things like that in a listing and I can pick things out like that. And the biggest thing I can do for a suggestion is just, have realtors hang out with the inspectors while they're doing their inspections and learn from them. Make sure they're getting the right terminology. So that would be my suggestion. I mean, it's really nobody's fault because that terminology, you're not in the field, so it could be misleading for sure.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was a great question because you see all the time in listings says roof this time is done in 2000 and whatever, right? But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's not the whole roof. What they say roof, they generally mean shingles.
Yeah, and that would be something great to bring up with your brokerage and maybe even, the CREB or area, whatever governing body is in your area, bring it up with them. So then they could like do a mass email out to everybody and say, hey, this is what happened to this realtor. Let's be more precise on our wording.
Exactly. We have another question here in the text box says, if the house had a water leakage, but has been completely fixed and there are no signs of previous issue, what needs to be looked out for sale in the near future?
That's great. Hopefully nothing. So if they disclosed it, great. But ideally, you don't need to disclose that because it's not anymore a material latent defect. If it's been disclosed, then I will definitely have a good look at it. I mean, I have had calls where the guy was going to list his house and he had a leak in the kitchen and he repaired it and he wanted me to, verify it so that when he had something in writing by a professional that it's been fixed and it's not causing a trouble right now. So ideally you'd want to like keep an eye on it, but that's how I would go about it. If I was aware of the issue, then I would have a good look at it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, Andy, and even leading up to this, man. I appreciate all the promo and everything that you've been doing to get people on this session, so we can get this kind of information out there. So everyone, you see his barcode over there behind him. Scan if you have your phone, scan it up. Get his number. Andy, also feel free to put in your in the text box there any way for people to connect with you. Right. And we're going to get on to our next speaker. So we're talking about Isack Ghebreyesus. He was on our Investor Cashflow session in the past, and he's back returning again to give us some more gems. Isack, how's it going, brother?
Good. How you doing, Richard?
Doing great, man. Talk to us.
All right. So, by the way, thank you for what you do. And me and Richard, we met and one evening, Friday evening, a networking event, and we said, we're gonna take this networking the network that we built a different level. That's why we start collaborating and we start doing great things together. And thank you for putting that thing together. And I'm honored to be here, Richard. All right, so I'll be sharing my screen and we'll be talking. It's as you all know, it's a tax season and it's a lot of people look up to, they want to save some bucks from their, from the income they make. So if some of you maybe self-employed or like realtors and stuff, that means you had a privilege to write some of your income like as an expenses. That means you can claim your some of the money that you spend to make money can claim it as an expense, which is we do have that privilege as a business owners, but a lot of people don't have that. So they look at alternatives where they can save some money. So tax saving season, it's called we call RRSP season, and before 2024 finish, also we call it from January to December time, called FSHS season. So people who never bought a home, they can utilize that option, or if they had a house but they sold it already 5 years past, they can use those alternatives. But what are actual tax and how many times did we pay taxes? But in this country, there's one thing that we need to pay attention. As we live in a capitalist country, nobody cares about you, and you need to figure out, you need to collect the information so you can live a better life. People think, hey, we live in this country, nobody will take care of you. So you need to learn. That's why you have to attend seminars, especially when it comes to financial literacy. In this country, we make money, we need to save money, which means at the end of we need to invest it, and also we need to protect it. So as a financial educator, as a financial professional, my priority with my clients, with people that I met is I give financial education out. Today my students may be here, so I do every night, every Monday night, I run financial education classes. Because you know why? Financial concepts are not something that are discussed all the time. They're like something that are they're not exciting subjects. Every time when I sit with my clients, as soon as I start speaking about money, most of you they're not happy. So I don't think people they don't like money, but also we have a wrong education. We just work and we pay tax. That's what we do most of the time. So we bring those things. Hey, what if we can bring strategy and build this thing out as an employee? But if you shift to become a business owner, it can be another story, right? So you know how many times we pay taxes? We make money, we pay taxes. We spend, we go shopping. Richard, we pay taxes. And we save money. If it grows, we pay taxes. And also when you die, it's taxes. And this country was very surprising for me. Every time somebody buys a car, if this car had been transferred to 7 people in 7 years, everyone has to pay tax on the same stuff. So if you're making money, paying a lot of taxes, and you spend, you have no option, you have to pay taxes. You invest, you have no tax advantage. Then what's going to happen is you'll be frustrated. You don't want to work more. So Benjamin Franklin said that nothing's certain in the world except death and taxes. So as in your employee, how can you reduce your taxes? From sales taxes into income tax to property tax to estate tax and every other taxes. So that's why now you need to start, when you bring the money, maximize your income so you can save from taxes. And the other thing is when you do also your estate planning, make sure you do proper documentation. Otherwise, you will give out a lot of free money to government. So we have different accounts. And in Canada, we have tax now, tax later, and tax advantage. Tax now means you're saving, you're checking any open non-registered account. You can dump any amount of money. If it grows, you pay taxes on the growth. Any pension account, RRSP, LIRA, RESP, Kids Education Plan, all these accounts also, you don't pay tax now, but they call them tax deferred accounts. You don't pay tax now. You pay tax when you start withdrawing. And the tax advantage means can be TFSA, can be life insurance products benefits, and also this is Richard's one, primary home. If you have a first home in this country, you live in it as a primary home for 1 year, you can sell it and you can keep your money tax free, right? So it's a tax season. So what should I use as an average income earner, make 60, 65,000, but I pay a lot of taxes? So in Canada, Canadians RESP rules are different from the US. However, the basic is similar. So whatever you contribute to RRSP, it becomes what? Tax deductible. As I'm self-employed, I can use still RRSP, but I can also claim my expenses to deduct from my taxes, from my income. Then technically, my income low, I pay less taxes. So average who works, makes money, pays a lot of taxes because he collects paycheck every month or every 2 weeks. As increases tax increase, the more he makes, the more tax he pays. So by using RRSP until February end, call it March 1st, but I don't try to call it, I tell them until end of February. Why not do it? If you know already, why not apply it, do it early? So until February end, you have RRSP season. So any amount that you made past 2 years, 18% of that income that you made, you have an RSP rule. Contributing that, what happens? Let's say if I made 70,000, I put 10,000 towards my RSP. What happens? 670 minus 10 is what? 60. So I pay my tax based on 60. That means they overtax me because they tax me based on 70,000. So I can reduce my income so I can pay what? Less taxes. So let's go now here. So people say like, I don't have money, right? Because my cost of living is high. The first time contribution you make, sometimes for some families it's hard to come up with the money. They say, no problem. Are you interested in planning? Some people say like, I don't have money. I don't want to listen. You know, there was a famous quote, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad says, do not say I don't have, I cannot afford it. Say like, how can I? How can I afford it? So how generally works at restaurant? Take a loan. You go to a bank, or there's some institution that work with, I call them B2B bank. You can ask a loan. Of course, you have to have good credit, all this income and stuff, but make contribution towards your RSP. Because you pay a lot of taxes, whatever you contribute, you get some tax refund, depending how much you contribute, depending how much you drop your tax bracket. Then what happened? You will get some tax refund. If you want to know those things, you don't have to wait until you file your taxes to know how much refund you're going to get. Because you can ask your accountant, he can tell you just now before you start filing taxes. You can know now, and you can know how much you can contribute with the RRSP. So if you don't have money, no problem. That's why we call it financial planning. You not necessarily need money immediately. You can plan, you can source something, borrow and invest. You know, you can borrow to invest in your TFSA. You can borrow money to invest in your TFSA, but you got to make your due diligence. You gotta have someone that you can trust to work with. So you can borrow money in RRSP and what? Contribute, make contribution to RRSP. So the rest, you can do installment. The maximum they do is 24 months. You can pay it in installment because you already saved from taxes. You take the refund, dump it there, and the rest you can finance pays for. Get a tax refund. You pay it back. Pay back the loan, you know, as you go. So that the same amount of money, you can use it as a down payment. So sometimes if you're starting and you don't have money, you can actually take out a RSP loan, contribute, get a refund, but you already have that money saved. If you consider a RSP, what? You ask someone that you trust, either your advisor or bank, whatever that you have. Tell them how it works. They will tell you, and pretty easy. If you have good income, you have good credit, it shouldn't be that problem because secured loan, you're saving that money, you're not spending. But again, that money is yours. But remember, that's why now we're strategizing. Take a risk, put that money in. Once you get the refund, what? Make sure you pay it back. All right. So this is one thing that you maximize, and you can use it actually towards your down payment. Okay. So you can use the registered saving plans in a couple of ways. The first is what? A retirement. Second is the home buyer's plan. You can take up to 35,000 husband and wife, which is you can take 70,000. If you both have, you have to have the money in to take it out. But you can take 35,000 and you have to put it back in 15 years. You have to save it back because when you take it out, you don't pay taxes because of for home buyer's plan. You take it and you have to put it back. So what you can do, you have an alternative in here. Either you can claim it slowly in 15 years, add to your income. Every time you have less income, you can, take a few thousand, add it, and you can claim it slowly, or you can save it back if you can. And the other thing is lifelong learning. If you want to go to school, you can take maximum up to 20,000 from your RRSP, but you have to put it back in 10 years. Again, you can either pay back or you can slowly claim it on this years. You can claim it and put it back technically. You pay them a little bit tax and you slowly take it out. And also you can take out any time, but you have to pay taxes because they are called what? They're taxable accounts. If you take, let's say now, if I take from RRSP, I try to take 5,000, they give me 4,500. Anything 5,000 less, I pay 10%. Anything between 5,000 and 15,000, I pay 20%. Anything 15,000 over, I pay 30% tax. So those accounts are, if they really help you, they're recommended by an accountant. You want to use them to save from tax, fine. But if you don't have tax problem, you don't need to go to these accounts because they just you technically jailing your money there. But of course, government, they don't give you for free. They tell, okay, you can save for retirement, you can do as a home buyer, or you can use a lifelong learning. But remember, not every dime that you have needs to be in RRSP because for retirement. You can use other accounts, but also it's good account to save from taxes as you pay income taxes. Okay? So if you don't have money, what do we say? You can use RRSP loan, contribute to RRSP. The money that's in RRSP, how can you use it? You can use it for retirement. If you never buy your first home, you can use that for that. And also lifelong learning. Okay? So let's go next. So the other thing is account that you can save from tax called first home buyer's plan. So this one, if you never bought a home, which is if RRSP, you can use it anytime because that account you can also use it for retirement. But what they did is they took TFSA, right, tax free saving account, right? They took RRSP, right, which is reduced from tax. So they make a middle account called what? FSHA. You can save money to reduce your tax like RRSP, and also you can take out the money if you buy your first home tax free. So FSH is a mix of what? RRSP and TFSA. You have a lifetime contribution of 40,000, which is if you open it, you have immediately 8,000 rule. Every year you can contribute maximum up to 8,000, or you can go back 1 year. Let's say if I open it 2023, I put 8,000, I don't put money on 2024, 2025, I can only go back 16,000. Current year and 1 year back. It's tax-free if you're taking it for a down payment, and also withdrawal when you are ready to buy your first home. It's a tax-free as down payment. Eligibility, you need to be first-time home buyer. Once you open it, Richard, you can keep it only for 15 years. But every year, you can claim 8,000 or less, whatever amount you contribute on your taxes to deduct it like an RRSP. But also, you can only have that account for 15 years open, or if you are 60, you cannot go until 75. You can only go until 71. Like RRSP, right? They tell you after 71, you cannot keep it. They have to change it to income so they can keep sending you the money. Okay? So both RRSP and FSHA, you cannot just have them until 70. After 71, you cannot just keep depositing. You need to start taking an income. So what if I don't buy a home, Richard, in 15 years? So what happens is, what did we say? It's between TFSA, if you take it for down payment, right? And it's RRSP, if you just keep it there. So the FSHA account, it goes to RRSP if you never use it to buy a home. Or if you have some money in RRSP, you can transfer it to FSHA, you can take out tax-free if you never bought a first home. So either way, you can move the money around to take advantage of either account. So if you have FSHA, you have some money in RRSP, open FSHA, you can move every year 8,000. Okay? So first home saving account is something that can be utilized if you never bought your first home. It is tax-free. On the contribution, it's tax deductible. When you put the money in, it reduces your tax. But when you take out, it is tax-free. Let's say, Richard, I contribute 40,000 in 5 years. Let's say I invested in a good growth fund. Let's say, I'll throw conservative number, 7,000 I made in 5 years. So I have total of what? 47,000. I take out completely 47,000. But if it's an RRSP, if I have 47,000, I can only take how much? 35,000 as a home buyer's plan. So FSHA is also the gross and the contribution. You can take all of them tax-free. All right? So let's see. How long can you keep it? For 15 years or until you reach 81. So the other thing is, aside from deductions from your income taxes, what about there is the most misunderstood account is called TFSA. A lot of people save money here for vacation, which banks advertise. Oh, you can, if you need money for vacation, emergency, you use your TFSA. If you want money for vacation, use different account. You can just open another saving account, Tangerine or Simply Finance, open account, and you can dump it there. When you need it, you can pick it up. But tax-free saving account, it needs to be maximized. If you can save 6,000, 7,000 every year, a tax-free, and it grows tax-free. not only the contribution, of course, are after tax money, but it grows tax-free. And a lot of people think that, hey, TFSA is another, they call it tax-free saving account, right? If I put money in my saving account, it doesn't grow, I don't pay taxes anymore. So why should I open TFSA to put money? It needs to be invested so on the growth you don't pay taxes. What did we say earlier? You make money, they tax you. You spend money, they tax you. You invest, they tax you. So that investing, any money that you invest in your TFSA, even during your retirement, you take out is not considered as an income. So let's say if I put saving 500 every year, Richard, by the time I'm 65, I can have, if it grows around 8%, I have, let's say I have 800,000. If it grows 8% the average. So that money is tax-free to me, and it doesn't affect any government benefit that comes to me as in terms of a retirement. Your RRSP is not friendly when you retire because it will take some benefits off your retirement. So that's why you need to look at holistic approach. How can you save taxes now through those certain account RRSP and stuff, and also see how can you minimize your taxes during your retirement time. So what did we say? RRSP, FSHAM, TFSA. And through of RRSP and TFSA, you can use leverage. Sometimes people say, I don't have money. That's why you need to have a financial professional to help you to show you leverage. You can actually borrow money to invest. But you need what? Discipline. A lot of people, they're scared to borrow, but they're very comfortable using credit card because credit cards usually don't really, they just give you because we buy trash, right? The stuff that we buy is we eat more outside, all these things that we do. But when it comes to borrowing, you need to be mindful because when you borrow, they do a lot of, they check your credit, they check everything. So they make sure that everything's right to give it to you, but make sure you do proper use. If you don't have money, no problem. We can figure it out. But you need a strategy. Of course, you need to have basic stuff. Plan of action. You can make change. You can take charge of your future. One of the greatest miracles is that you can change simply by, that's why you attend these webinars, because you get some new information, so what? Go apply. So you cannot save money because you're paying too much tax and life is high. Yeah, take a loan, a risk loan, contribute it, get some of the money refund, then whatever loan left, finance it. A common secret shared among highly successful people is that the way they think. They think and grow rich. Many of them come from the same place. That's why now, 10, 15 years from now, some people will struggle to pay the rent, but some will be way ahead. You know why? Because they leverage the system and they leverage loan and other. So make a mission for you and your family, because whatever you wanted to do, if you don't have a proper financial house, you're always going to be distracted. Increase your cash flow, spend less, reduce your debt and liabilities. If you have debt, make you have a proper leverage, Don't only leverage credit cards, leverage other loans to build asset. Understand how money works. You want to be in real estate, you want to be in certain business, understanding how money works. The basic rule is what? Do not spend more than you make. Whoever left around, have emergency fund for 6 months, the rest were invested. Have a financial goal. Take care of your responsibilities, have a proper protection. A lot of people trying to buy homes and stuff, but a lot of people don't have critical illness, don't have protection. So something happens, the family struggles so bad. Build what? Your wealth. That's why we're here. That's why we're here giving financial education. If you're buying a home, make sure you do a proper inspection. Don't try to do it all yourself. Guess what happens? You don't do anything at it. If you want to measure your action, the things that you do, make sure you follow some professional path. So you don't go back, redo again the same thing over and over again. Same conversation comes on the table. I tell them like, okay, you're sick, why not go to doctor? Or you're buying a home, go see a realtor, go see a mortgage agent, go see some person can help you to inspect the house. Look at those things. So what happens? Then you don't go back to the same thing. You don't waste time. Of course, it takes time, but you don't go back to the same thing after. Start to save. It's not how much it is, how disciplined you are to save. Start the small amount and increase it gradually. You have small goals, big goals, but build a discipline of what? Saving from taxes, and also prepare also for 10, 15 years from now. Look at it, like what's it going to look like, Do like, there's one thing I do with my team, it's called, you do like every month projection. You bring goals and you project it. in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And at the end of the year, how much do we have to? You break it down. All right, embrace change, yeah. Expect something, change your habits. Small things that you expect succeed. Get out, cool, you know. See the world. There are people who are better off you, but there are a lot of people worse off you, you know. So, but learn. If you can help. If you can learn and improve something that you can longer term. You are special. You know you're somebody, and how you can do. You can do a lot of great things. You are the head of the family. You are the captain of the ship. Set a sail, feel the wind, and enjoy the journey. But you need a plan. And sometimes paying tax are painful, but you cannot change. You know what you can do? You can plan to take control of it. You cannot stop paying tax, but what you know what we can? We can plan around it. We can pay less taxes. Okay, let them collect tax because we wanna roads, you know, wanna add other things, but don't overpay taxes. Don't complain about tax, but figure out a way to reduce it. If you don't want to pay tax, probably it's time for you to get to business. If you have certain ideas. I will go back a little bit here. 2 things that you can create change to your life. What are the books you read and the people you meet? The more you spend time with the wrong crowd, you know, probably have wrong information. They say if you're not doing right, probably you're misinformed, you know. I met a lot of people say like, I want to do it myself. I want to do it myself. I tell them like, why didn't do it? Why it took you so long if you know how to do it? You know? That's why now you need a professional, you need a realtor, you need good accountant, good lawyer, you know? So when you have information, you just should. Paying money is the cheapest way to get information. But correcting a mistake actually is more painful because you have to be double. If you want to be successful, move a better environment. Be around successful people. If you know how to tell your case, not hang around certain crowd, you know how to do it too. Sometimes the things that with the mistakes that we do is we are a result of the environment. That's why every time people do is what you save, Richard, you spend it, you don't build no assets, then you go back. You know what? Borrowers and savers are the same. The savers, they save, they spend it. And the borrowers, they borrow and they pay back. But because we are designed to be certain way because that's why everyone is happy on Friday nights, right? Because that's what we're designed to spend. We have appetite. So the key to financial freedom is that great wealth is the person's ability or skill. So that's why I mentioned even last time, create a service. Whether you're a realtor, inspector, or other things that you do, you can actually change yourself to a money-making machine, but also you need to have a strategy, the money that you bring in order to build what? It can be real estate, it can be other investment. You need to know how to allocate. Everybody needs financial education. So they know the cost of being a professional because they know in a long term where they're rich. Okay? If you want to be rich, you need to be financial literate. A budget is telling the money where to go instead of wondering where it went. You know, most people say, I don't know where my money is going. I tell them, let me show you. I sit down with them, you know, you pay total CPP and EI, all these things, you pay 21,000 total taxes. They say like, what? I say, like, yeah, make a budget. See how much tax is going, how much you actually saving. A budget is what? Telling your money where to go instead of what? Wondering. People say like, where my money went? Where do my money go? I don't know. It just went, it came in and it went. Don't you have a expensive car payment? Don't you have, you know? Sometime I was talking one time to one of my clients and he's talking some about insurance product, you know, protect his family. And he's telling me like, it's too expensive. And I said, okay. Then I tell him, can you send me your statements? So that's why now when you see the professional, you gotta be happy to show your things. Then he send it to me. Then we find some expensive membership that he don't use. Amazon, like around $8-9, and we find some recreation center like 120 a month. We take that thing off. We actually look at it, so we were able to get $180 from his spending, so we can allocate to other plan. So what did we do? We budget. We didn't create an income, but what did we do? Create a budget. Then we tell him, okay, this money is going where? Here. Because you were saying, I don't know where the money is going. So what do we have to do? We don't have to wonder, but we have to plan and tell our money where to go instead of wondering where it went. The best investment you can make on the investment yourself. The more you learn, the more you learn. The same money that you have without changing an income, you can take a loan at RSP, contribute, and get more tax refund. And I thank you for listening. And Richard, hope it puts a lot of value in you. Go make it for yourself. I'll give it back, brother.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate your talk, man, and you. I like how you emphasize on points. Honestly, I almost vomited because you talk about taxes so much. I was feeling sick. I was like, oh my gosh, taxes, holy. And this is so important that everybody has these ideas. The things that you're teaching, are amazing. Like some people, the taxes that you're getting, try to get that back through the strategies that Isaac's teaching us. That he's sharing with us right now. Put them in your tax-free savings account. Put them in different places where you could grow that, and then you actually get to keep your own money. So Isack, no, amazing presentation, man. I appreciate you going in detail. And the more detail, the hopefully everyone got it. So yeah, if you got it, give them a thumbs up. And even we want to open it up right now for questions as well. But we do have a hand up. Andy has his hand up. Go ahead.
I have a question on the FHSA, $8,000 a year. What if you only put in 1,000 in 1 year? Do you get to put in 15,000 the next year?
Yes, you can. You can go 1 year back, but you cannot go more than that.
Yeah,
So
I was advised to get one, so I put in $25 when it first came out just to get it started.
Yeah, you can only put back now whatever left. You can go back 1 year. So whatever you didn't use in that year, and the full second year, you can do that.
So year 3, you can't go back.
You can go back. That's why now
Only
make
3
sure
Okay.
you can only put 16 at one time.
Good knowledge to have. Thanks, Isack.
No
And
problem.
when you were saying that, you're talking about getting a loan. So you say if you can't contribute a lot yourself, you get a loan and put it into the TFSA, and then you said from that you lend that money out. If you don't mind talking, just go a little deeper in that as well.
Sure. So so far the most common thing is you can take loan to invest. So those things used to be very popular back then because of the inflation went high, the interest went very high. So most people, it didn't make sense to do that. But people, they can actually borrow money to leverage. There are there's a one that we work with, they call B2B bank. You can actually get a loan. Let's say you have 60,000 TFSA. If you have that capacity, you can actually borrow money to invest. So you can use it, it's your money. As long as you pay them the interest, it's up to you. But usually you take it and you invest it. So the most common one banks use is tell people to take RRSP loans. So if you can now, when you take the loan, ask them for RRSP line of credit. That's a better one instead of taking a loan, because the loan is used one time. But if you take RRSP line of credit, you can actually use it many times. You can go back and use it many times.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. We have another hand up, and also Serena. I see. She said I understood your TFSA contribution room carried over indefinitely. So I don't know if you want to expand on that, Serena, but
yeah, so I don't know if I was misunderstanding what we were discussing, but I understood that it carries forward. So
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So were you talking about the loan to use against it?
No, not the loan. You can actually borrow to invest. That's what we're talking.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't confusing, because RSPs can be a little bit different, right? But for the TFSA, it does carry forward indefinitely.
Okay. We talk about FSHA. First to hold. TFSAs you can carry, but FSHAs you can only go 1 year back.
Too many acronyms.
Don't worry about it.
All right. Thank you, Serena. And SA there's a hand raised. Isack, there's a SA, please go ahead, talk, or put your thing in a text. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if it's.
Hello, thank you for everything. First, it was amazing class, and also I have one question about RRSP.
Okay.
Can we buy stocks when we save some RRSP? Can we buy stocks instead of saving in bank?
So you can choose to invest it. When you open RRSP, you can choose to invest it. Remember, TFSA, RRSP, if it's dollar accounts. So when you open those accounts, you can choose an investment that you want to invest, whether I don't know who you do it with. I'm not a stockbroker, I'm a financial advisor. We do funds. I cannot tell you this is stocks to buy or not to buy, but you can invest it, but you need to have a vehicle to invest it with. You can choose,
Thank you.
using that account, you can buy any investments that you wanted to, because it's an account, so you can pick up an investment within the account.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. This is what this session is about. You know, after every speaker, I'm even more pumped than pumped. You know, and this is Isack. Isack, please, if you don't mind, I want you to, you know, share how do we get in contact with you? Anyone on here that wants to continue moving forward, you know, in like learning what you're teaching about, how do we connect with you?
Well, I'll drop my contacts on the chat, but yeah, I'm from Toronto, so my office is on Highway 7 and Stills. I'll send my contact and address in the chat, but feel free to just maybe call and ask for any information if you need. Yeah, so I'll be happy to help, Richard. Thank you for the service.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate your service as well, my brother. All right, good stuff. So, you know, in this session, we're going to get into our final two speakers, which is Serena Holmes and Cameron Manning. But before we get into that, I want to open this up. You know, we have a lot of professionals on here. We have realtors, we have mortgage brokers, we have investors, we have entrepreneurs. You know, we have just a person that is working 9 to 5 and they're a homeowner, but they invest in real estate, or they want to invest in real estate, you know, or they want to just be educated on what's going on in the market. So during this segment, and we do this every month, we want to be up to date. You know, how is the real estate market? You know, it's such an important question. I'm sure everyone talks about it. It's at any event you're at. It's a topic of discussion. Everyone's always asking, you know, and that's why we want to keep the conversation going, right? So I want to real quickly share this video. This is Canadian Real Estate Association, right? And in the Canadian Real Estate Association, they had representatives this month. We're talking about some very interesting points on where the Canadian real estate market is actually going. You know, what's happening over here and what we're seeing over here. You know, if you're in the field, then you may agree, but if not, just take in some insights on what he said, and then I want us to go deeper and talk about it. All right, so I'm just going to play this from here. Just about 5 minutes of this on play.
So if you look at the number of months of inventory, this is over almost 30 years for all of Canada. It's a really great measure of both demand and supply in one number. You can see how housing cycles between buyers markets and sellers markets rarely stays in the middle. And you can see where we are, where we've been over the last 2 years coming out of COVID. This market never went back to where it was 10 years ago, which was almost a buyer's market, where it was in the 90s, which was a decade-long buyer's market. We went into hibernation, and we've been sitting in that seller's market zone this entire time, which is why prices really didn't fall much, say for the rate at the beginning. And of course, if you expect that to change overnight, it's not going to, because housing cycles are long. So, you know, from the housing boom of the early 2000s way up to the sort of soggy market that we had in the 20-teens, and then about 10 years, you can see, took us to get down where we are today. It wasn't just COVID. COVID was a turbocharger. And but this housing crisis and this seller's market lack of inventory hasn't gone anywhere. So you break out that most recent months of inventory numbers, so measured 15 days ago by region, because a big part of our forecast is the differences by region right now, which are vast. That's the number of months of inventory 15 days ago across the country. And that red line is where a seller's market would be in each of those provinces, okay? So if you look at Canada, like I said, we're very close to that mark already. It's not going to take much in the way of buyers coming off the sidelines to put us back below that red line. On the cool side, we have BC and Ontario. So they're way off doing their own thing compared to the rest of the country right now. It's almost the reverse of what we've been used to the last 10 years, where they've got lots of inventory. That months of inventory number is about 2 or 2.5 months above where a seller's market would be. So they've got a lot of runway for buyers to come back into that market and start to absorb inventory before buyers start running into each other and competing prices up. So a big component of our forecast is more sales in BC and Ontario that have a lot of recovering to do and not much on the price side. Now, if you flip to the prairies and Quebec and the East Coast, it's the opposite. They are all already sellers markets today. Prices are rising in almost all of those places already, and we think that that's going to accelerate. If you look at the prairies, one of the things there is we don't expect much in the way of sales growth there because they're already setting sales records and inventories are at a 20-year low. So there's not a lot of scope for that. But we do expect, if for every 10 buyers, there might be only 5 houses. So, and that price growth is already going on. We expect strongest price growth in some of those parts of the country. And for Quebec and the East Coast, they're sort of a hybrid. They're all sellers markets based on their own history, but they have more inventory. So their prices are rising, but there's scope for sales to rise too. So that's the basis of how we think it's going to shake out across the country. Here are the numbers. Canada, we expect sales over MLS systems to go back over a 500,000 mark this year. It's an 8.6% increase, so fairly large in magnitude. We're fairly confident in this call. And like I said, driven mostly by BC and Ontario that have the most recovering to do to get back to normal, which they will eventually. And that's what that looks like compared to a 45-year history of sales in Canada. If I throw a trend line on there, you can see that, in boom times it goes a little bit above, in slow times it goes a little bit below, and you'll note that in the last 2 years is the lowest below normal we have ever been. So that's where the recovery story is. We got some climbing back to do, and we're not thinking we're going to get there in the next couple of years. Obviously, the red lines there are 2025 and 2026 forecast. And on the price side, we think that the average price in Canada for all of Canada is going to be about $722,000 this year, which would be up 4.7% from all of 2024. But for perspective, that's already happening. So I think to start the year, we're at about 700,000 already compared to we started the year last year at 670. So it's already rising. So this isn't as big of a call. It's not. We don't expect this to start to happen tomorrow. It's already underway. BC and Ontario, matching inflation only. They've got the lowest price growth for the reasons I've already described. And everywhere else sort of between 4 and 8%, with Alberta and Quebec actually above 8% price growth and potentially even more because these are some hot markets right now. And what does that look like compared to history? Well, sometimes prices go up and often they go flat. They don't really go down often. We think that the conditions are right for them to go up again this year. Obviously, this being in nominal dollars, it makes the forecast, the newer data, look like a bigger deal compared to 3 decades ago. But if you break this out on a year-over-year basis and look at the year-over-year growth that we're forecasting, it's a lot more reasonable. This is actually a very conservative forecast right now. And it's conservative for the reasons that there's a lot of risks out there. There's some to the high side, but obviously, as I mentioned, there's big ones to the downside. And so with no data in yet for 2025 and no policy yet in terms of Canada-U.S. trade, we're being conservative. And that's the end of the slideshow portion. At the end of forecast, when you say your assumptions and your risks, assumptions and numbers, then you hit the risks, right? And so I'm going to give you 2. One is to the high side. If there is as much demand out there as we think there is after years of record, and I mean really record, if you haven't seen it, you should look into the data, population growth, and the fact that the biggest demographic cohort in Canada is people aged 25 to 35 by a country mile. Makes the younger baby boomers look like nothing. They were dominant in that population histogram for so many years. So it's all out there, but it hasn't been manifesting itself in our data or in the new home data. So but we think it's ready to go. And so the risk is if they're looking for the best interest rate they're going to get, which is soon, and they're looking for a whole bunch of inventory to come out, which is April, and they're looking for the lowest home price they're going to get, which is now, because they're already rising everywhere, the longer you wait. The risk is that we get, what we used to think was 2 or 3 years of demand trickling out, all showing up 3 or 4 months from now. And the downside risk, of course, is a major trade war with the United States and all the associated negative economic consequences that would have for Canada's economy, for people's jobs and their abilities to pay their mortgages, and for uncertainty, which is a huge housing market killer because, if you're not sure about your employment next year, you're not going to go out and sign a contract for 25 years and borrow $500,000, right? So that's the risks. So think of it as a fan of possibilities that's wider than normal. And with my last couple of minutes here, that's the forecast. I would like to talk a little bit about another piece of the housing market in 2025, which is with a federal election coming, what are we going to be talking about? We're still in this housing crisis. It has not gone anywhere. So I'd like to talk about two things. We talk all the time about how many units we're short, and it's a really big number. It's really daunting, and it can be depressing if you think about it too much. So I want to talk about, okay, we got to get this done. We know how many, but what are we going to build, and how are we going to do it? I think that needs to be the next thing in the conversation this year. So let me hit the first one. What are we going to build? 20 years ago, we had a housing and building boom in Canada. We were building a lot of homes for a long time, and more than half of them were traditional single detached homes. Over that 20 years, the single detached home is basically now on the endangered species list in Canada. And we talked a great game about replacing it with something called the missing middle. And you can see the problem is that the word missing is still there. We didn't do that at all. We shot right through and we built initially a whole bunch of smaller and smaller apartment condos to make up those missing units so that we could still say that we were setting records. And in the last decade, there's been a massive explosion, I think a lot of people don't know this, in purpose-built rental apartments. It's the dominant category of completions right now. Great homes, I'm sure, for our households, and we're getting a lot of housing built, that's good, but not a substitute for starting and raising a family in. And that's why the stories are, people moving from Ontario to Alberta in droves. David Coletto from Abacus Data has a great stat on that. You know what the most common age for people moving from Ontario to Alberta is in the last couple of years? The most common age. Do you think it's 27? Do you think it's 33? You know what it is? 0. It's infants. It's young people that are having their first kid and saying, I can't raise this kid in a one-bedroom apartment. I can't afford anything else. I've got daycare coming next year. We're out of here. I think that that missing middle conversation is a huge one. And how do we get it built is the next question, right? So CMHC says we need 3.5 million more homes by 2030, over and above the maybe optimistically 1.5 million we're on track to build. That's a lot. It's optimistic because that's to rewind the affordability story back to 20 years ago. The parliamentary budget officer says 1.4 million more homes just to catch up before we start to keep up. So let's go with the lower number. That's double our construction. How do you do that? Do you double capacity, double the number of carpenters and laborers and construction workers and plumbers and electricians and roofers? No, that's not going to happen. In fact, we already have a labor shortage, and it's going to get worse because more people are going to be retiring in the next decade than we're bringing in. There's the idea that we could use the immigration system, which is a good idea, and we can still do that. But, that's going to run up against lower immigration targets. And so really what we want to talk about this year is offsite construction and new technologies, mass timber panelization, modular. You could build houses a lot faster if we do it the way we do cars. And I'll leave it there on sort of an optimistic note that there's, we haven't tried these things yet, and that could be the future, and that could be the way that you actually get millions of homes built. So happy to take questions.
All right. Okay. That was very impactful. A lot of information there. Let's talk about it. So right now, anyone want to share their opinions on, either what you just read or even your personal experience on, how you feel is going on with this real estate market? Because, I took a lot from that. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to say. And this is open for everyone on here. Please, just share your opinions on what we viewed or even what you're seeing. I think I see the message here. Okay. So Andy said a good time to invest. We had investors buy a new build in 2022 when they were finished in 2024, sold it for 100K more. Those were the days here in Ontario. And Cameron, I guess out there in Vancouver, right? But Calgary, that's amazing that you guys are doing that. So anything else? Okay, so I'll go from my perspective and actually taking this in, and why I felt it was important for us to really tune into what these guys are saying, because the Canadian Real Estate Association is the governing body of Canada. We are in Canada, so it's very important to see what is going on and how they're thinking. Multifamily, there's so many incentives that are going on right now, for you to build multifamily properties, or for you to create more housing, right? So those like the MLI Select program, CMHC has many programs where you can get loans and financing, for that. Here in Brampton, which is I guess GTA area, where I live, there is a lot of land, and what we've noticed is exactly what he's saying. The detached houses, they're starting to build less of, and now they're going more high density, into high rise or even smaller homes. condo townhouses. But he's going to another further extent and saying in this year where they want to start building a lot more modular homes. You know, anyone else have any what are your thoughts on that? We even have our speakers. You guys are good to say, Cameron. I know you're out there in Vancouver. You have what's going on. Serena, I know you're investor in properties. I want to know, what are your opinions? I know you're going to give us a lot more insight there, but just on these topics right here on the real estate market, like, yeah, go ahead, Cameron, talk, your hands up. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no worries. So Vancouver market, I mean, definitely what he mentioned there. We are experiencing a significant increase in the inventory right now, which obviously has caused prices to really level out, mellow out. We're out of that multiple offer scenario. I mean, I have seen a few of them, but the strategy is still there: price it low, get multiples, but it's a lot less nowadays. And we saw buyers take a real sideline over the last, I would say, year or so right now. And the sentiment out there was, oh my God, once interest rates start coming down, we're going to see buyers start to flood back into the market. And while, yes, we have seen sales increase over the last 3 months, it hasn't been at the same pace as we've been adding inventory, because a lot of sellers thought the same thing. Hey, if I just wait for rates to come down, more buyers are going to come into the market. I'll list my home then. And so now suddenly we have a significant amount of inventory, not near as many buyers to absorb it right now. So it will take a while for us to see that absorption of inventory. So from that perspective, it is an excellent time to go out invest, in my opinion, because you don't have the multiple bids like you are seeing in the Alberta market right now. You can negotiate, get concessions off on properties, and you know your numbers work out better at the end of the day. If it works well at list price, it works even better when you've negotiated prices off. So I've been telling everyone, if you're looking in this market, get out, start putting offers in, start putting stink bids in too, because you never know someone's motivation. They might be looking to get out, and you throw a low offer in, you might actually get something. So that's kind of what's going on in the Vancouver market.
Wow, thanks for sharing that, man. You know, I definitely seeing the same thing going on over here. And just like the gentleman was saying, he said the lowest prices now. You know, people have been waiting. You know, they've seen the prices drop. They definitely did drop, right? But now it's kind of like you're at that point where the prices are low, and not only that, but the government, they're having all these incentives and programs for people to be able to afford. They increased the mortgage qualifications, right? So now up to 1.5. You could put less than 20% down, you know, 10% on anything below that amount. So if you're a buyer and you're someone that's looking to purchase property, now is the time. You know, there's realtors that are on here, you know, looking at area. And, you know, that's why we have platforms like this, because we're here to educate you, right? Because a lot of times people, they want to make the move, but they don't want to make the next move. They don't know where to make the next move. You know, so reach out to us and let us properly guide you. We see another hand up here, Parmjit.
Hello, yeah, Richard, I want to add, like, I think buyers are still holding up because of the uncertainty about the Canadian, like, Prime Minister and the tariffs. So people are waiting to all sort it out, like maybe another 1 or 2 months, maybe 3 months, until the new Prime Minister is chosen and the tariffs are clear, how much tariffs Trump is putting on us. So then maybe the market will move.
Yeah,
I
but we
hope
don't know
so.
what way the market's going to move, right? So that's why
Yeah.
I think, you know, like definitely there's always going to be uncertainty, right? And I agree with what you're saying, for sure. Everyone's on the sideline, kind of watch what's going on. But we even see, even with markets, you know, when everyone's making moves, that it seems like that's when everyone's making moves, but that's not when you get the deals. You get the deals when nobody's making moves. You know, that's when you're going to go out there, just like Cameron was talking about, and he's saying that right now, you'll be surprised. You'll throw an offer out there, and they may actually take it. You know, you don't know what the motivating factor is. On our last investor Cashflow session that we had Michael Sicorio, who's a mortgage broker, and he said that this year 1.4 million Canadians are up for renewal this year, right? And many of them actually got like 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago in 2020 and 2021, where they're paying like 1.9% interest, and now we're at around like 4.5, right? So you're looking at double. You know that people are going to have to go. So you don't know what their motivation is and why they want to sell. right? So yeah, definitely there's a lot going on, but definitely I think everyone should start looking. Andy.
Yeah, Calgary, it's a wild market out here. We're seeing everybody take advantage of the new rules for the multi-units, where instead of paying 20% down, you're only having to pay 5. We're seeing people buying like two old crappy houses side by side. They tear them down and they're putting in 8 plexes on each one. So the time for investing is now for that kind of stuff. The market here has definitely been slower. It's still a bit of a seller's market, but not the multiple bid. And I've been hearing the same thing too, like what's going on with the tariffs. Richard, I sent you an email with the CREB forecast for 2025, and in there they talked about Trump and what the tariffs are going. So there's some pros and cons. Have a look at that.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Cameron.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to, it's not in my presentation later, but what we're also seeing because of what he mentioned earlier, there was a lot of, pre-construction happening, a lot of construction in the condo market. There are a lot of people who had bought condos with the assumption that they'll be able to flip those condos and make a bag. And now suddenly they're being told they have to close on them, they can't sell them, or they're putting them up for sale. But with all the inventory on the resale side of things, people aren't able to get out of these properties. And either one, they didn't prepare themselves to get a mortgage and close on this, which is a huge issue. Anytime I'm selling pre-construction, number one strategy, get a mortgage and close. But 2, they're at a position where they either sell it at a loss and get out of it and avoid being potentially sued by the developers, which a lot of developers are pursuing lawsuits right now for non-completion. So you're getting these amazing opportunities right now to buy these condos at discounts that are huge. People are walking away from deposits because it's cheaper than getting sued on them. So huge opportunity. And I always look at it this way. At the end of the day, that person can't close. They're going to be in a lawsuit. So you're actually going to be helping them out by getting them out of that situation, and you're getting a great deal out of it as well. So one area to look at, especially in my market, if you're looking in the Greater Vancouver, is look for assignment of sales on pre-construction where they're being sold at absolute giveaway discounts just so the person can get out of it. We had a whole bunch recently where the person took a $45,000 loss on 2 units, so that's times 2, just to get herself out. And so people are buying these things at about 330,000, and the most recent sale on the resale is 400. So there's built-in equity there.
Wow, guys, that's what these gems are. Thank you, Cameron. Appreciate that. And like that's what I'm saying. You won't know until you know, right? So all these insights. Anyone that has been thinking about purchasing property, now is the time. If you have funds that are available, reach out to a realtor, reach out to a mortgage broker, reach out to professionals around you so that they can help you get in to a purchase in real estate, right? There's so many opportunities that you don't know about. Before we get to the next session, do we have anyone else that wants to give their insight on what they're seeing in the real estate market? I know there's other realtors here. I know there's mortgage brokers here. What's it looking like on the financial side? So I see many names here. Amar Betty, I see you over here. Thank you for joining us. Do you have any insight on? Do you have one? And just unmute yourself or even put in a little text, because obviously we want to see it from different perspectives, right? If no one has anything to say, and that's fine. We're going to continue on the session, but I'm hoping that, at least you got to take something away. So now your perspective on what's going on in the real estate market is a lot more clear. Okay. So we have our next speaker that is going to be blessing us right now on this platform. Her name is Serena Holmes. All right. Serena is actually a person who she had her business, so she's well-versed in business, and she's a licensed realtor, right? She's a real estate investor, right? And she's a published author, right? And she's a business coach, and she has a podcast called Inspired to Invest. All right. So, I'm inspired to hear her talk right now. Serena, thank you for joining us on the Invest for Cashflow session.
All right. So I hope I don't put a damper on the mood, because I'm here to talk about due diligence.
Yeah.
For many of us that are in these communities, I think everything had been going really great for a long time. I had a business that I ran for 18 years, which I sold in 2013. And in fact, I had hired my first business coach. I was about 8 years in, and I realized I'd been winging it for 8 years, and I'm sure there was a lot that I didn't know. So I hired a business coach, and when she kind of dove into my finances and stuff, she said that I had too much money, which is kind of like a good problem to have. And she said, you should really consider taking money out of the company to invest with. And I said, well, what do businesses normally do? And she's like, well, they normally operate on like 2 to 3 months of cash flow. And I had like 18 months. It's like, I always want to be able to pay people and pay my bills. And, we were kind of in the industry working with B2B. So a lot of like Rogers, the airport, Motorola, consumer packaged goods and stuff like that. And they all operated on different terms. So even though in a perfect world, we get a 50% deposit with the balance in 30 days, the reality is sometimes that could take longer. So I always wanted to have that cushion and be able to cover our staff as we were committed to paying them bi-weekly post-event. So I started out with a short-term rental in Florida when the dollar was at par. And 4 years later, the dollar is no longer at par. So I decided to sell it. And I kind of sat on the money for almost a year because I just didn't know what to do next. And if I knew then what I know now, I would have gone into multifamily immediately for a number of reasons. So for one, some of you may or may not know this, but you can commercially finance a multifamily property. So anything over 5 doors. Essentially, it's net operating income of the property that qualifies, not your own personal finances. So obviously that's a benefit. And obviously I wasn't afraid to invest outside of my backyard. So as we know, there's a lot of landlord friendly and non-landlord friendly places. So being in Ontario, I'm kind of priced out of the market, and the landlord laws here are not very great for property owners, but you can look at things like Alberta, New Brunswick, even a lot of places in the United States where you can have more control over your asset. And I'm not saying you're out to screw people, that's not the case. But I also don't believe that someone should be able to not pay rent for a year and a half and you're the one paying all the bills. So I think you just want to consider all of those things. I did not go into multifamily. I ended up buying 2 pre-construction properties, one in Langley, British Columbia, and the other one in Edmonton, which I kept and tenanted. I also invested in land development, 3 syndicated mortgages, and then I had a friend that introduced me to private lending. And it seemed perfect. I mean, you're getting these high returns, you're using access to capital that you have back in the day when, your line of credit was only 2 to 3%. You could loan it out from 15 to 20%, make the spread, and everything went really great until one day it didn't. So I did about 60 deals, and, in about 5 to 5.5 years, everything went really, really well. And I really believed in just being diversified. So I worked with about somewhere from 15 to 16 companies with over 20 deals. And in the past year and a bit, most of them have gone sideways. So I've had a very quick masterclass in all things litigation, and it's been really crazy. And I wish I could say I'm the only person that's been impacted. But I mean, if I looked at the communities I'm part of, there's probably, I'm going to gauge like 12 to 1,500 investors easily that have been impacted, and probably about $500 million that has gone up in smoke. So there's a lot of things out there. I see, Karen, you're kind of nodding because I'm sure that you're in some of these communities as well, and you've seen some of the things that have happened. And there's a lot of things that kind of go along with that. I think that naively, a lot of investors thought, well, all these big companies, they're larger in life, they're celebrated on these stages, they have all these assets. And I think some of the challenges that I've seen was that a lot of them scaled too quickly. A lot of them weren't getting the work done, a lot of vacancies, which led to creation of insolvency and things like that. So that's one aspect to it. So I actually think that bigger is not necessarily better in a lot of these instances. And then the other issue is just unsecured lending. So I think this became very, very popular with the returns, and no one ever really talked about really how risky that is and just some of the things that you really need to be looking at. And I think, again, the way that a lot of these legal agreements were written, and I even had them looked over in the beginning. So I never questioned how some of these were written. So they're written that you could put a lien on a property in the event of a default. Nobody expected, well, the 1P note is actually more like 20P notes on this one property. So the value could potentially be 2 to 3 times what the property is even worth in some instances. And I actually ended up interviewing with another brokerage. I won't name who they are. But one of their partners was on stage talking about his illustrious portfolio was worth $87 million and it had over 1,000 doors. And it was all single family homes. And I couldn't wrap my brain around like, how could he possibly finance that many single family homes when it's such a struggle? Like, usually that's why people go immediately into multifamily. And I talked to him after the event. He's like, oh, I work with a really real estate investor friendly mortgage brokerage. It's a lot of private mortgage holders. And, it made a lot of sense with everything. And, what we didn't realize is that the mortgage brokerage is actually facilitating a lot of misrepresentation. So a lot of the first position mortgages, I think they had fraudulent appraisals. The homes were in horrible shape. A lot of those secured first position lenders are seeing like 30 to 40 cents on the dollar for the properties because that is how horrible they were. So I think some of that learnings is just to get your own separate legal representation, but also to get your own inspections and appraisals if you are considering like the private mortgages. And then there was also a lot of unsecured lending. So some of those people went into a fund that they believed that there was a level of security with the brokerage, which is really not possible or existent. And then a lot of us were we thought one-to-one with some of these borrowers, and it turns out we're one of 20. I think in total there was maybe 40 borrowers that were facilitated, and one of them filed for bankruptcy last April, and the bankruptcy trustee basically revealed that this company had done 32 flips, and they took a loss on every single flip. And I'm like, why? Why would the mortgage brokerage have possibly facilitated something like this? Like, it's just mind-blowing because not only is she harming all of the people in the community, she's now been forced into personal and professional bankruptcy. I don't know if she'll necessarily see jail time because in Canada, the laws are a lot more lax here for a number of reasons, where I think if the same thing happened in the United States, they might be seeing like 20 years jail time. So there's just a lot of things. Our security system and the Ontario Securities Commission is so overworked. It's very difficult to see white collar crimes pursued. And you could probably actually get in a lot more trouble for robbing a jewelry store for $1 million of jewelry than you would from stealing like $30 million from investors. So it's been very, very eye-opening. So again, a lot of things I think that anyone should ask for if they're considering a passive real estate investment. Again, I don't think that bigger is better. I think if you're one-to-one, so for example, if you're going to be the money partner and you have your working partner, you're on title, you have access to all the books, that may be one possible option, or even one of very, very few. I think you want to understand how much experience they have. I think a lot of people are coming in and they only have a couple of years experience, so they haven't been through some of these market downturns that we've seen. Asking for financials. So I think, a big issue, at least for unsecured lending, is that it's not registered on title. So you wouldn't necessarily know that there's 20 other people and you wouldn't understand the full scheme of the debt. But if you saw their financials, it may shed more light on the health of that company. And again, just having a clear understanding of the legal priorities and what your options are. I think everyone was very surprised to see that in the eyes of the law, like it's almost like you don't exist if you're not a first position mortgage lender. So very much so, like they have all the rights and the priorities. And yeah, it's really unfortunate just to see how all of that has been treated. And at the end of the day, what we've seen is that the lawyers are the ones who win. In this other situation, I think we're up to over $16 million in legal fees in the last year. And it's just mind-blowing to see like the way that everything has gone with the representation and all of that. So I do think, again, bigger is not necessarily better. I think even if you do want to go the multifamily route, there's ways to do that. And I think you can do that wisely. But you just want to make sure that you're scaling appropriately and you're not biting off more than you can chew so that you are not running into issues with insolvency and cash flow. Going back to your point about building multifamily, I know that MLI Select has been really advocated for in the last little while, but one thing just to be cautious of is that they do change the rules often and without any notice. So I know people that were building and they changed the rules pertaining to energy efficiency, and that created some issues for some people relying on that point system. And also they recently changed the loan to value from 95.5 to 25.75. So that can also change if your ratios will work from an affordability standpoint. So just go in knowing that you want to be very, very conservative with your numbers and have another plan, because I know a lot of people that are running into trouble now that have great projects. They've spoken to 200 lenders and they're hitting a wall. So it's come like very unexpected and almost like this really delayed reaction to the pandemic. So I think you just have to be careful if you're trying to go build an apartment building. Like, that's not like an insignificant undertaking.
Wow, that was a low right there, which is amazing. And thank you for sharing that because I didn't know of these changes that they can make suddenly. So you're saying if somebody is in the MLI program, from when you start the process, the government can change on you, or once they give you that, once they accept it, then it's good, right? Or you're saying,
As I understand it, once you've been accepted, they can't like reverse it on you. But
okay.
if you're in that stage where you're working towards that,
Mhm.
one of the issues is that you had to, a lot of people would use various lenders to get started. And one of the rule changes that you had to have one of their preferred lenders in order to be accepted. And then there was like a 2-year window until you could get reconsidered. So something like that, everyone's kind of like, a lot of people are ready to go and get applied and get in. And then all of a sudden this changed. So then they backpedaled on that, I think 10 months into that change because it created so many issues for people. So again, it's just, you just got to be mindful of the fact that anything can happen when it comes to real estate. When people talk about real estate being risky, I never really totally believed it. I'm like, it's tangible, you can touch it, like it always goes up in value. And yes, there's these ebbs and flows, but when you are dealing with large projects, I'm not talking about a small 5-plex. Like I'm talking about the people building subdivisions, apartment buildings, like very significant undertakings. Like any little ebb and flow in either direction can totally shatter your project. So I think you just have to be very, very, very careful and just make sure that you have other options just in case something unexpected happens.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Serena. And talk about due diligence for passive investors. Right now, we know a lot of investors. One of the main things is getting partners, right? Doing a JV and getting, you have your general and limited partnership, right? And
Yeah.
some people feel, hey, I just got to put this in here, and then the general partner is going to take care of everything, right? So what about, because there's many of these people, they may not be able to get the full building in terms of, but as partners they can. So can you talk about the due diligence in that case as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard in the sense that you'll never fully understand all of the elements. I think you want to understand what's involved in the project, what the exit strategy looks like, what those outcomes could be. So one thing that I learned, for example, is that if there's going to be more than 50 limited partners on say on a larger project, that could be something that's even in the range of a couple million plus. They should really be working with an exempt market dealer. So it's not necessarily compliant with securities to have more than 50 limited partners working, just independently with them through maybe a securities lawyer or something like that. So just be mindful. You would be paying a premium to the exempt market dealer, and chances are the amount maybe per investor might be a little bit lower because they're trying to qualify them and make sure that they're not, taking their life savings and stuff like that. And it doesn't mean that there's no risk. In fact, there could actually be more risk because when you're a limited partner, if the project runs into the ground, since you're a partner, you would actually stand behind any of the creditors. So mortgages would be paid out, any unsecured lending, and then you as a partner would actually be last. So it doesn't mean that there's security in the sense that you're a partner on the project, but if it's mismanaged or they run into some sort of an issue, you just want to understand where you fall in line when it comes to some of those things. In some instances, I found a lot of those investors were setting up mutual fund trusts so that they could accept registered funds, which could be ideal because in a lot of instances like that, you may not be seeing cash flow until the end of a project. And just know that as a limited partner, like they may say it's a 12-month term or 18-month term, but as a limited partner, you're in it for the long haul. So I'm in a couple right now that are going on 3 years and they're all 12 to 18-month terms. Chances are we're not seeing an exit until the end of this year. So your money could be tied up for a lot longer than anticipated. So just know when you're partnering in a situation like that, like you are giving up control, right? So depending on your level of comfort with that, it's one thing to be one-to-one, maybe on a JV, compared to maybe one of 10 or 50 or 100 investors in a GP/LP.
Okay. And then you said 15 or 50?
50.
50. Okay. And then you're talking about the general securities, like, so can you go deeper into that? Like talk more, like what is that and what do you expect from that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's one thing dealing with a real estate lawyer. I found it really interesting, actually. I sat in on a webinar recently with a real estate lawyer who's one of the preferred vendors for one of the organizations I'm part of. And when I joined this community 6+ years ago, OPM was all the rage. So other people's money, the perfect world is the money partner, the working partner. And he was actually saying he's seeing a lot of deals not closing because if the lawyer finds out there's like the money partner and the working partner, and depending on how that's been communicated, like that can be perceived maybe by a lender as a little bit more risky. So I found that really interesting because that's usually how it was, for years. So we always understood that that was kind of the way to go if you wanted to be more passive. But there are other lawyers, like one of them, for example, is Morani Law Group in Toronto. Like they'll deal with structuring a GP LP if you're looking to engage investors on various projects. But again, that's up until that bandwidth. So from 1 to 50 investors, they can structure that appropriately. And basically, you're issuing shares to all of your investors. And as a limited partner, you don't have control over the operations and management of the business. You're putting in the funds in an equity position. And then the general partner will manage the acquisition, improving the property, dealing with the refi and things like that. And then if you are looking at any more than 50, then you're going to look at an exempt market dealer. So Atlas One is one, Waverly, Parvis. There's a number of them, but you're definitely going to work with that brokerage to make sure that all of your clients are handled appropriately and they're not exceeding the amount that they should safely invest as an either eligible investor or accredited.
Okay. Yeah, so you're going off. Like you're talking about a lot, and that's what I'm saying. It's very important. Like I like your topic of due diligence. So it shows that you've actually been going and doing your due diligence, right? So in terms of what should a borrower do to make a lender feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is that what I found is a lot of the borrowers won't necessarily offer up information. Like I think as the lender, you're the one that really needs to be the one looking out for yourself, right? So a lot of times people say, get to know the operator, trust the operator. Well, that's the problem. Like a lot of these operators were trusted and they were built in these communities and they were on stage and they became very, looked as the thought leaders for these various things, right? And I think a lot of people maybe didn't understand what they should be looking at. So one of the tools that I found, for example, is the Ontario Court Case Search tool, where you can actually look up a person or company. And some of them literally have claims going back years and years. And I'm like, I wish I would have known about this because the mortgage broker that I worked with that facilitated some of these deals, like some of those borrowers have claims going back 10 years, 15 years. So if we had been aware of some of that, of course, you're not going to invest with them. And then some of them that ran into issues more recently, like, I think they have 3 pages of claims in some instances, just going back in the last year to 2 years. So maybe it wouldn't have saved you from the first investment for people that invested repeatedly. If all of a sudden they had been aware of those things and checked up on them regularly, then they would obviously not continue to reinvest. There was one person I had on my podcast, and he goes, "Don't talk to me about return on investment, talk to me about return of capital." And he kind of just goes to show that you can see all these things about high interest rates and stuff like that, but you want to know how and when your money is coming back, right?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of you, because clearly you've gone through a lot of experiences. All of us have gone through different experiences, but from your perspective in the investing thing, and talk about due diligence, and you're actually going in and you're keying in on everything. So now where you are right now, like like what are your next steps? Like how are you moving forward? So that we could start there, or whoever, in terms of the things that you went through. Of course, the people on here don't want to go through these challenges, right? So where do you go from here?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I feel like I'm literally starting over. Like I worked for 2 decades and I was like, I've hit, what do they call it? Like financial freedom day, right? So essentially when you triple your income, I was like, I'm here, I'm protecting my principal, I'm tripled my income that I used to take. And I wasn't using all that and spending it. I was actually continually using it to reinvest and pay down my principal and stuff like that. And I think right now there's a lot of stuff that is just still in flux. So nothing has been 100% crystallized. There are a couple of cases that, there have been power of sales on bankruptcies and things like that, but a lot of it is still in progress. In some of those instances, I even have judgments and writs against the borrowers, but they're so over leveraged, it's very unlikely that we're going to see anything back from them. So it's not a good position to be in. I mean, at the end of the day, we've considered we could even sell our primary residence. I could reinvest that knowing what I know now and probably recover very quickly in the span of like 2 to 3 years. But it's not an ideal situation by any means. So I've just been trying to regroup, and like I said, a lot of that litigation is still in progress and it's going to take some time, but I'm cautiously optimistic that some of it will lead to at least a partial recovery. But the only way out is through, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then just to wrap up, like with multifamily, and investing, I know, like you said, you go outside of borders, so you're going to different provinces, and then also the U.S. as well. You're investing in. So why make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, there's different things. So I mean, in Moncton, for example, where I was kind of at, I had some significant funds that were supposed to come back in January of last year, and this issue with this one mortgage brokerage occurred 2 days before my money was due back. So it was like worst possible timing. But the investigation that I'd done in the previous year was that I found 2 or 3 partners that I thought I was comfortable to go forward with. So when you're talking about 8 plexes, I know someone that has 7, 8 plexes under construction in Alberta. She essentially raises about 600,000 in startup capital from 5 or 6 investors, and then they can be built fairly quickly. So usually within 12 to 18 months, she'll return the capital for those investors, get a traditional mortgage on it, and it's a long-term buy and hold. So you can keep recycling that original capital. And then when you're looking at multifamily in New Brunswick, for example, you could buy a 6-plex for 250 to 300,000, spend 150,000 improving it, and it usually can refinance in the range of 8 to 900,000. So, you're not getting taxed on any money that comes back to you in a refi. So you can usually, again, pull out your original capital and then some, and then keep repurposing that and continuing to acquire. Florida can be really great in terms of cap rates and also for your landlord control. So you can typically get out your tenants within 75% in about a week, and then usually 100% in 30 days. I know a lot of people that are very, very gung-ho about Texas, so they've done really well with some of those markets. So again, you just want to look at your affordability and, your ability to cash flow, return capital if you are engaging investors, and just have a solid plan in that sense.
Okay, thank you so much. And then you being a realtor as well, are you connected with key realtors out there? You work with any realtors? Are you doing co-ops? How are you expanding yourself on that end as a professional?
Yeah, I mean, I connected with some real estate investing friendly realtors. So the community that I was part of, there were a couple specific realtors that were really big in these areas. And then I was also part of a mastermind. So I got to know different operators and people that were working in different markets that way. And even just honestly, podcasts. Saw someone talking on the Bigger Pockets podcast about doing midterm rentals in the Midwest. And you can basically buy properties there for 100, 150,000, but you're renting them to construction company, professionals, medical, dental, and you're renting them for like 2,500 to 3,000 a month. Well, if the property is only 150 grand, your mortgage is probably $800 a month or something like that, right? So the cash flow can be really good. Again, you are dealing with single family, so you want to have an appropriate property management system if you bought up like 5 of those or 10 of those. But it was just interesting that I saw this guy on the podcast and I just had a call with him and he gave me all these resources. So people aren't necessarily unattainable. I think, even when people reach out to me or anyone here that's talking tonight, we're all trying to help each other and get by. And I really believe in reciprocity and paying it forward. So I think don't hesitate to reach out to somebody. The worst thing they can do is not respond to your message.
100%. Hey, I reached out to you, you responded to me, and we get all this information, so I really appreciate that. Does anyone have any questions for Serena? She gave us so many gems. She mentioned so much stuff. As you're on here, use this to your advantage. These type of platforms, you get to speak directly to the speaker. If this was in person, after Serena's on stage, everyone would be swarming around her, and you may not even get to talk to her. But right now, it's wide open for you to connect. Cameron, thank you.
Serena, I think your presentation there was bang on exactly what people need to understand, because I do think we run in a lot of the groups. I was just going through your Instagram. I've seen a couple of my clients on some interviews with you. So we definitely we run into that. And I think I know a few of the groups that you were mentioning as well. So I think if everyone's listening, I just want to back up what Serena was saying and just say, absolutely, you got to be incredibly careful and be careful how fast you scale. She kind of talked about that briefly, but honestly, a lot of the companies that are having these troubles right now is because exactly what she said. They scaled way too fast. I saw some companies. I know another one recently that I just saw an email come through. I'm sure you're aware of them as well, from Vancouver. That just sent an email saying, we will not be communicating with everyone. Please send everything via email. We will respond via our lawyers. And they were well known and well trusted. So be very, very cautious. Be careful of the ones buying and scaling too fast, because that is an indication that it's a house of cards. So just wanted to
and to be fair, some of them, it's not even that they're necessarily doing things wrong, but some of them I think were collateral damage to some of the other big companies that went down. And in that instance, like, I actually know those operators really well, and they had a few $1 million in equity that was supposed to come in. Another group filed bankruptcy and it all disappeared overnight. And they've run into liquidity issues ever since. And then a lot of the damage that's happened now is from like legal action that's happened from investors. So they can't refinance, they can't get new financing. And then, they were so close to kind of getting over that hump. And then one more person filed, and next thing you know, the house of cards blows up, right? So I think it's just this full ripple effect. And, yes, they were scaling fast, but there was also a lot of other things that happened that came into the equation.
Yeah. And then the other note that, I think that was very important that you made is just being very careful with P notes, because in a lot of cases, it's worth the paper it's written on at the end of the day if you don't have any other security that they're backing it with. So I think that was great advice. And I think everyone should be taking a note of that. If someone's offering the security as just strictly a P note, then you got to go a lot more in the due diligence and be a lot more cautious with it. So
can you expand on P notes?
Yeah, so essentially it's a promissory note. So if you think about traditional lending, when you're a first position mortgage lender, you're collateralized and securitized against the property. So in the event of a default, you literally can take over the property in a foreclosure. I know some other people that, even, like I said, they're getting, not to say super pennies on the dollar. It could be 30 cents on the dollar, it could be 70 cents on the dollar, because the market went down. So you've got to be very cautious of your loan to value. Then there's the second position. So obviously you fall behind, and if the loan to value is not there and there's not enough equity, you may lose your position, your value in that instance. But with a promissory note, you're not registered anywhere and there is no collateral. But again, I think the way that some of these were written, they're backed up with general securities agreements. A lot of these companies had these robust portfolios. Some of the agreements were written in such a way that you could put a lien on the property in the event of a default. So I think a lot of people were led to believe that there was kind of like a quasi security of some kind. There was personal guarantees, and really none of that matters. Like, at the end of the day, like, unless you're a first position secured lender, like, there's always going to be an element of risk. And depending on where you fall in line, then that risk continues to grow the further down the line that you get.
Wow. Thank you so much, Serena. She just saved everyone here thousands of dollars, just for going out here. So we appreciate you, Serena. And Serena, please, if you don't mind, before you sign off, how do we be in contact with you? How do we tune into the podcast? How do we connect with Serena Holmes?
For sure. I'll include some of my links in the chat for anyone that wants to connect.
All right, guys. That was Serena Holmes, and this is the investor cash flow session. And that's exactly what we want, all this information for you to leave with. So whether you are an investor, you're planning to invest, now it's not just, don't just have a P note. As little things like this can save you and help you so much in your journey with investing for cash flow. And it's a great way for us to end off this session with our final speaker, Cameron Manning. He's been all through the session, dropping little gems, but now he's going to give us more of his time. And Cameron's talked about smart investing in the greater Vancouver. And if you're in the GTA, you're going to feel similarities with these high markets, because he's going to show strategies to maximize your ROI in tight cash flow markets. So if you're in a market that has great cash flow, these strategies will even make you make more cash flow. Is that right, Cameron? All right.
You betcha, absolutely.
Introduce yourself, let us know who you are, and then get into it.
Sounds good. Well, Richard, first and foremost, I just want to thank you for the invite to come and speak to your group here. I think what you've put together is really informative here, really valuable information. Every single speaker, I was just nodding the entire way. So, you know, I was going to make a joke like earlier today where it's like the best for last, but literally it's been the best the entire way through. All the speakers have been fantastic, and I hope to continue to deliver on that. I do have some slides, so I'm just going to share my screen here. I just got to figure out how I can do that. Let's see here. How do I share my specific Google Chrome? Is this it? Let's see which this shows. There we go. You should see the Greater Vancouver investment strategies. Excellent. Okay, so yeah, so we're going to dive into investment strategies in around the Greater Vancouver market. And obviously, I'm going to be coming at this from a little bit of a different perspective, because the one main thing that is very attractive with Greater Vancouver is the fact that we are a wealth building market. We are not necessarily a cash flow market. So absolutely, exactly like Serena was talking, if you're looking for great cash flow, there are some amazing markets out there, but there's also some advantages to being in, you know, a wealth appreciation market. So we're going to go through that. And to start things off, quick introduction. My name is Cameron Manning. I'm the director of sales for the Kelly Fry team. I've been a licensed realtor for coming up to a decade now. I can't even believe that. And I've been investing across multiple provinces and multiple different strategies over the last 14 years. And for the last 10 years, I've been predominantly an investor-focused realtor. You can find my socials there. I'm the host of the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast, so we do a lot of conversations, just getting raw as to what's going on in real estate. And we get a little political once in a while here too, because it's important to know how politics impact your investments as well. So check that out for sure. Now I'm going to start things off with a video. So I got to make sure my audio is being shared as well here, because let's just see here where, oops. Cancel that. Let's see. Make sure the audio is being shared. Computer sound is on. Okay. We're going to be... Oh, now I'm like reflecting back at me. There we go. Okay, so we're going to play a video here, and this is going to show you guys what's been happening in Vancouver over the years.
We can't even get in to play the game, let alone wished for that sort of a thing. So
the sort of thing Darlene Bly is wishing for is a home for herself and her husband. Jim and Darlene are in their early 30s and have been married 7 years. They've been looking for a house since September. They've got a $10,000 down payment and a pre-approved mortgage for $120,000. But every time they've found a house, they've lost out to someone else. This is one house Darlene and Jim bid on. The asking price was $115,000. They offered $106,000. They lost to a higher bidder, and they know they're not alone. Many young couples can't compete.
I've heard that a lot of places are being snapped up, sight unseen, and paid cash for out of the country. And how do you compete with that?
Prices are being pumped up because of an increased demand. Foreign buyers and an estimated 30,000 people have come here from other provinces. Take a look at what's happened to prices in the past 5 years. In the west side, the median price has doubled. And even in the east side, prices have gone up 50%. The solution for many first-time buyers is to move outside Vancouver. Realtor Brian Calder says the market moves in cycles, but there's always been a group that had to limit its expectations.
Say the bottom 25% that wished to afford housing that couldn't pay the prices in the East End 10 years ago. And they moved out further. And the same thing is happening.
According to Brian Calder and other real estate agents I spoke with, what's happening should come as no surprise. We've sold ourselves very effectively. A lot of people have moved to Vancouver from other parts of Canada, and an awful lot of property has been bought by offshore investors. So what we're seeing now is the price of success. Layla Paul, CBC News, Vancouver.
All right. Just turn that back off so I don't echo. There we go. So as we can see here, it's very reminiscent to what we've been hearing now in the news for several years now. We've been hearing about foreign investment coming into Vancouver, you know, causing multiple offers. People can't get into the market. It's getting way too expensive. The property values have been going up. And yet That is the same cycle we hear over and over again. This is an article, this is a video from 1989. Now, if you hear the agent correctly when he said, this is the same situation that happened 10 years ago, which would have been in the 1970s. So this is a cycle that Vancouver goes through quite often. And so it's important to know that when you understand the cyclicality of Vancouver, you can kind of start to understand when are the investment opportunity times and when you should be looking to diversify the portfolios. So we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit today. Let's get out of this here. There we go. So can you cash flow in Vancouver? I'm just going to move this here. Simple answer is no, not in the traditional sense anymore. If you're an investor who's going to buy a house or a condo or anything and you're putting 20% down, you're likely not going to cash flow. Now, depending what your strategy is, some people, we got a lot of investors who are okay with that. They come into this market, they put more money down because they want to be in the real estate market in Greater Vancouver. A lot of people who are foreign investors, that's specifically why they come into here, because they know that long term, Vancouver is a very safe market. It's a very liquid market, and that's why they want to come in. However, if you do want to invest here, you do have to be prepared to put more money down to make a cash flow, which your overall return does go down because you're putting more money out. Or you have to go further out into markets that cash flow. So for us, that is going out to the Fraser Valley or beyond. And in many cases, a lot of investors are heading out to markets like Alberta or possibly the US. Or the other last thing is you have to get creative and start combining different strategies to maximize your cash flow and your ROI. A popular strategy here would be like the BRRRR strategy, where you buy, you renovate, you rent, you refinance, and you repeat. But the key to that one would be to do a good enough value add, such as adding a suite that maximizes your cash flow as well as increases the value. So we always like to talk about investing where returns are best. And I thought I would break down where the centers of your return on investment actually come from. Now, in real estate, I always look at it like it's a 3-course meal. So your cash flow, especially in markets like mine, where you're in Vancouver, it is important to cash flow, but it's not going to be your greatest center of return. You're going to get maybe, if you're lucky, 1 to 2.5%. And that is assuming you find a property that does cash flow positive. Your mortgage pay down, this is your bread and butter. This is your steak dinner. This is where you're actually making your best return long term. And everything we're talking about in this presentation is long-term investing. We're not talking short, quick in and outs. So you're going to earn about a 6.5 to 7.5% return on your money every single year by collecting your rent and paying your mortgage off using the rent collected by your tenants. Again, this is consistent, and the lower the interest rates, it actually helps improve that return. And then lastly is your appreciation. This is an appreciation market that we are in. It typically, over a 30-year period, you can estimate that Vancouver will go up an average of between 7 to 7.5% on average. Now, we have some swings that are higher, and we have some markets, segments that go down, but we are talking long term. It's inconsistent, but it will always be your largest source of your return. Then, of course, for my guys who like to get their hands dirty, or if you're maybe a developer, there's some opportunities for a fourth bonus return, and that is your forced appreciation. This is the strategy of increasing the value of the property through improvements, such as what I mentioned, renovating, adding a suite, going in and doing a flip, or in the case of land developers, they're going in and they're going through the process of changing the zoning. They're changing the land use of that property, which then improves it and allows for an increase in the valuation. So those are 4 different ways that you can make money in real estate, but these 3 are what a lot of people tend to focus on. So when we're looking at a return on investment, we got to look at it as the whole picture. Can't just always be focused around cash flow, because if we only focus on cash flow, we are missing opportunities in some really good markets where you could generate some very good returns. All right, so cash flow markets versus appreciation markets. What does tend to generate the best ROI long term? And that is appreciation markets. So when you take a look at these are 2 very iconic cities that you can see here. We've got New York on one side, you got a city in Texas. The average price for a house right now in New York is about $800,000, and that's an aggregate across all New York State. And then in Texas, it's about 359,000. Now, obviously, you're going to get much better cash flow in a market like Texas. I mean, when you're looking at buying a property, 359,000, the rents in some cases is going to be higher in New York, but you're probably going to have a better rent ratio to markets in Texas than you would in New York. But there's a reason why people with wealth continue to pour money into New York. The holding there, the liquidity in those markets tends to be a lot higher when there's really good economic times. And again, it's no different than a friend of mine who is a big realtor out of LA. He goes, my clients are dropping millions of dollars to buy a $10 million house because they know that the land in LA is worth that value. And they then turn around and sell it for like 15, 20 million in the future, depending on how long they hold it. There's definitely some play here for appreciation markets. Now I'm going to take a look at a more realistic, look in the Canadian side of things. And I've got two homes here. Now, the reason why I bring this up, because this is a little bit of a personal anecdote here, but the average price of a home in Vancouver versus Edmonton from the 1960s to today. On the left here, you have Vancouver. This is a house that I found on MLS recently. It's in fairly original 1960s condition. Probably going to be a tear down and an infill, which you can see next door to it. And back then, you could buy a house for about $15,000 to $20,000, which is double the cost of what it is out in Edmonton. You could buy a very similar house with a similar size lot for around $10,000 to $12,000. So again, we used to hear the stories in the 1960s. You talk to anyone who's owned real estate. I was told that I'd never make my money back, that the property values were way too high, they were overvalued. Again, sounds very similar to what we're experiencing today. In today's money, here's what those properties are worth. The property on the left in Vancouver sold in 2004 for $1.575 million. Again, fairly original condition. My guess is going to be a teardown. The property on the right is actually my grandmother's house that we just sold in 2023 after she passed away. And we got $330,000 for it. And there's currently a sign in the yard that they are tearing it down and doing an infill there as well. So very similar properties, but you can see why these markets are vastly different. Now, what is the reason that Vancouver continues to be a very high appreciation market over a long period of time? It really boils down to a couple of key factors. One, we are landlocked. So if you think about Vancouver, or even just Greater Vancouver, Fraser Valley in general, you have mountains on one side, we're surrounded by an ocean, and we run along the US border. So land-wise, we are very locked into what we have available, making the land more precious out here, more valuable out here, compared to maybe, let's say, the prairies where there's an abundance of land. The other issue we run into is we also have agricultural land reserves. These ALR areas mean you cannot develop. And if someone wants to go in and buy a property in the ALR because they see an underutilized area not being farmed, you want to go in and rezone it, put single detached homes, put condos, put whatever, it is nearly impossible, or it takes years and years and years of red tape to get those properties out of the ALR. So we really only have one opportunity for us here in Greater Vancouver, and that is densification. That's why you see a significant, Richard had mentioned it, that, Toronto, there's a lot of building of condos and there's a lot of high rises. We are seeing the same thing. In fact, certain markets, Serena, I know you said you bought in Langley. I don't know if you're aware, but Langley has its first 2 towers ever now built. I couldn't believe it when all of a sudden there was an announcement of towers. Now in the Langley city area in Willoughby, there's an announcement for 5 more towers. I couldn't believe it because that area has always been either townhouses, low rises, or detached homes. So it is pretty crazy what's happening. But again, that goes just into the fact that there's demand. The other thing that impacts Vancouver is that it's a global city. Like Toronto, like New York, like LA, it's on the world stage. And when people say, are you sure? Do you really? I said, well, look, we just had the Olympics back in 2010. Look what happened to the market after the 2010 Olympics. It was slow with the building at first, and then it kind of got crazy. We just had Taylor Swift come in and finish out her Eras tour. Now, I'm not a Swiftie. I can name maybe one song. But what that did is it puts Vancouver on that world stage. She does 2 concerts, and we had friends of ours, realtors from other cities, flying in wanting to stay with us because they were going to that concert. So anytime you have anything that puts your city on the world stage, people realize what you have here and they come. And that's why we do have a lot of people moving from other areas of the world into the greater Vancouver area. Now, obviously, as I mentioned before, we are going through a cycle that's a little lower where we have higher inventory, less demand, but that's a cycle. We need to understand that cycles come and go. So why is it important to invest in and around the Vancouver? Because again, it's hard to invest in Vancouver. If you don't have the money to do 1.575 million, you got to look a little further out. And that's the benefit of our market. When you're in and around global cities, it has a ripple effect that moves out across all the other suburbs. We're talking onto Vancouver Island, Victoria, Langford, Souk. We're going out to the Fraser Valley with Langley, Abbotsford, even out as far as Chilliwack. And in some cases, we're seeing that really starting to ripple out to the interior when we're talking Kamloops, Kelowna, Osoyoos. So this ripple effect basically means that as the value of Vancouver continues to rise, it creates an unaffordability factor and more people start to move out. Now, in some cases, we are seeing a significant, just like the video that Richard showed where they said a lot of people are leaving Ontario and going to Alberta. We are seeing a lot of that right now where people are leaving Vancouver and going to Alberta. But my thing is, I'm originally Canadian. You saw my grandma's house, or Canadian, Albertan. You saw my grandma's house in Edmonton, born and raised. We are seeing that. I've talked to a few people that were there, 5-6 years ago, and they're already getting tired of the winters. They're wanting to come back, but it's very difficult to get back into this market once you've left it. So we are seeing that there is a bit of a, oh my God, did I make a mistake moving out? Some people absolutely love it. I have a friend who left Vancouver. He's been there 15 years in Edmonton and he loves it there. Can't complain. So it depends on the person, but we do see that there are a lot of people who want to come back into Vancouver. So we're going to talk about how do we identify some emerging markets then now, because we want to stay close to the Vancouver market. We want to have that ripple effect, but where's the next best investment opportunity where we can mix getting good cash flow along with getting that ripple effect of the appreciation so we can really maximize our ROI. Now, some of you have been around a long time. You might recognize this curve. I've been a real estate investment network member for a long time. Rain, been with them for about 10 years. Not an active member anymore, but Don Campbell used to just drill this into our heads. Like I remember every single time we would have an economic analysis of different cities and he'd be indicating where things are at. So we're going to dive into it today. First and foremost, how do we identify an emerging market? Well, we got to start to look at, is there growth in that city from a GDP standpoint? Are they starting to get some economic growth in that market that will cause some good future growth in terms of housing, population, job growth, everything to that effect? So if you've got businesses moving in, you've got industries moving in, it's going to start to create some GDP growth, and it's going to then impact the rest of this curve. Obviously, with GDP growth, over the next 12 months, you're going to see job growth. You're going to see, industry start to come into an area, creating new opportunities for jobs that might not have been in those areas for a while, or if at all. So suddenly with job growth, it's going to start to bring people in. When you bring people in, there's going to be a demand for housing. Typically, that starts with rental demand. People are moving into an area, they're going to test it out, they're checking it out, and they're going to say, I'll rent for a year, kind of see if this job works out. I'm going to, see if I like this place. And as the rental demand starts to increase, what follows? Decrease in vacancies. So vacancies start to decrease because we have increased rental demand. As investors, we all know the lower the vacancy get, the higher rents start to get. On tenancy turnovers, or depending on your laws where you're investing, it creates opportunities to actually increase the potential for cash flow. And again, I agree with a lot of what people said. You don't want to be an asshole about it, but when you have a tenant turnover, well, hey, guess what? You can bring it to market rent, and the next tenant is going to be looking across all the units, and they're paying all the same depending where they're going, right? We got the increase in the rents. Next thing you know, those people will start to turn into buyers. They've lived there for a year, maybe a little longer. They're going to say, okay, I know I'm staying here. It's my job stable now. I've built up some credit within that job that the banks are going to look at. Time for me to get into the market. So we start seeing the property purchase demand increase, and we all have experienced this. Again, Alberta's experiencing it right now. Vancouver, Toronto, we experienced it in 2020, 2021. We start to see the increase in the prices. So this is how you identify emerging markets. Now, what I want to show you guys today is an emerging market in BC that nobody really knows about, but we have started to keep an eye on, and we're really in this part right here. We've seen population growth, and we've seen a significant increase in rental demand. So I'm going to show you this project that's happening, this town, and why we think it's going to have the next great opportunity for you to get in and start to cash flow long term, as well as see some good equity gains as well. So this is Princeton Point. This is it's actually a pre-sale opportunity that we got our hands on. We're not representing the developer. We brought this out to investors, and the response has been phenomenal. Investors they're doing their due diligence. Again, as Serena said, we actually had somebody who called up all the employers to confirm everything that we've been marketed, and they've confirmed everything. And at the end of the day, this is an opportunity for you to get into a market where, if you look at it, we're still on the low end of this curve here, where we're seeing increased rental demand and population growth. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about what's going on in Princeton. I've got another video here that I'm going to show you guys, and you're going to hear from locals in Princeton, business owners in Princeton, and the mayor himself. So I'm going to turn on my computer sound again and play the video.
There's nothing like waking up in the morning and looking out the window and seeing fog patches in the valleys, beautiful trees, the rivers and the streams. The beauty here is incredible, and it's just at our doorstep.
I love so many different things about Princeton. Small town appeal of this community. As you come in from any direction, you see the valley open up, and you know that there's a strong community here.
I have been in Princeton with my family about 20 years now. It's got a sense of community where everybody knows each other. Your children play together in the sports teams and go to school together. And it's also got proximity to all the major centers, the orchards, the vineyards, and the retail.
Drive 5 minutes and you're out of the town and you're into the wilderness, and you can be at 150 different fishing lakes or camping lakes, and you feel the great outdoors right in town. So.
I live way up in the mountains, it's nice and quiet, and I just like the slow lifestyle. There's a lot of stuff you can do if you're into that outdoorsy type stuff.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is how we've seen the town grow over the time that I've been here, and some of the increase we've had in tourism and business development.
We've got some amazing programs going for storefront revitalization, our parks, the statue walk, everything like that. We've also incentivized industry to come here. And we've been selling industrial lots. We have new industries flourishing here. An all-around good economic sense is what we've been trying to foster here.
When I came here in 2009, it was a sleepy village with a Chevron stop, and people just passed through. And now with all the different industries that are opening and the building that's going on, this town has become a magnet for people.
It's got a lot of natural draws, really good paying jobs, a sense of community that they can come and enjoy a lifestyle and raise families in, but they have to have somewhere to live.
We have a lot of people that are from the coast that would like to move here from different parts, and unfortunately, as we've gotten a little busier, the limited housing we had has been pretty much bought up, so there's not a lot of new housing here for people.
We are working with developers right now, and in the full stream, I think there's between 300 and 500 new homes that we are working towards developing in the community. It's the largest growth that our community has seen since probably the gold rush. Next 5 to 10 years, our big priority is to diversify the economy even more. We're working with industry partners to strengthen their industries, but we're also working to create new industry here. So we have some high tech that's looking at coming to the community. We're looking really to foster that, and we're also looking at post-secondary and seeing how can we work with them to bring programming into the community.
My time in Princeton has been also about building a family as well, and I've got young kids now in the community that are from a generational family here in town, and getting to see them raised where their grandparents and great-grandparents were raised too is a major sense of pride for my family and for me.
I've always said to people, Princeton is what you make it, it's not what you expect. You come here with the expectation that you're going to be able to do anything you want. It's just the perfect location for living in the outdoors. Princeton's the place to be.
let's carry on. There we go. So that is the Princeton area. And as you can see, you've heard from the mayor, you've heard from some of the people. There's a lot that's going on right now. Now, if you don't know where Princeton is, because when I first got pitched this project, I actually had never heard of Princeton. Again, Alberta born and raised. I've been out in Vancouver for about 10 years, but I don't do a lot of traveling into the interior. So I was like, where in the heck is Princeton? So if you're familiar at all with the Vancouver market, you know, Greater Vancouver is right over here. We've got the Fraser Valley, Chilliwack. Chilliwack's had some massive growth as well. Massive brewery, Molson, if anyone knows Molson, they just opened up a 400,000 square foot brewery out there. Hope is kind of the last stop when you start getting into the mountains, into the interior. And as you can see here, Princeton is like a hub for all of the stops that people go. You've got Manning Park here, you've got Osoyoos, Penticton, you've got the Okanagan, up to Salmon Arm, Kamloops, Merritt. So typically what happens is a lot of people, when they're traveling from the lower mainland, they're going through Princeton. And you heard the gentleman say, you know, several years ago, Princeton was just a Chevron stop and people filled up their gas, grabbed some food at the A&W, and they moved on. Now suddenly it is becoming the hub for what's going on in the interior, and that's through a lot of industry. The mayor recently mentioned there, you know, they're looking to bring in tech right now. They're actually in conversation with several large tech companies to come buy some industrial land, set up their offices in Princeton. The number one thing that's holding those tech companies back right now is a lack of housing for their employees. Another situation is they've got one of the third largest copper mines in Princeton, and this has been a huge driver as well for that area. The copper mine has a 30-year pre-bought order from companies like Mitsubishi, where they don't have to worry if like suddenly prices or values go down. It's been pre-bought. So that's going to keep that mine running for sure for at least 30 years. Those mines are looking to bring in significantly more people because they're understaffed right now. And as well, they've also got a hospital in the area. There was a nurse that the mayor was talking to, and we got a chance to hear the story. The nurse comes in on contract. There's nowhere for her to stay. The motels that are there are pretty old and dingy, and even the people I know who are going and working the site, they stay down in Osoyoos and will travel an hour and 15 just to go to the site because they won't stay in Princeton right now. That poor nurse is renting a small bedroom, individual bedroom, in someone's house for $150 a night right now. So there's a lot of huge opportunity from a cash flow perspective in this market. What else is really attractive to the Princeton market? Well, for those who are familiar with BC, we have a lot of taxes. Like the most recent one, when Isack was talking and he goes, well, you know, if you sell within a year or over a year, your principal residence is not taxed. In BC, it's 2 years. We just recently announced our new 2-year flipping tax. If you sell within 2 years, you get taxed. But Princeton is exempt from a significant amount of these taxes, and it's due to the size of the population it is now. At any given day, the standard population of Princeton is around 3,000. However, with people coming in and out on contract, that goes up to about 5,000 people on a daily basis. There's a lot of people going in. What is nice, though, is because the actual population that is permanent there keeps it underneath a lot of the exemptions. So there's no foreign buyer's tax. Whoops, what just happened here? There's no foreign buyer's tax. It is exempt, meaning that if you have someone coming up from the US, from Great Britain, from China, from India, from wherever, they don't have to pay the 20% foreign buyer's tax in this market. So that creates opportunities for investors in other regions to come in and invest in BC. The big news that came out of BC a couple of years ago was that they recently had done a significant reduction on and restrictions on Airbnb, making it very hard for a lot of people who relied on Airbnb for cash flow to be able to cash flow. A lot of these properties are getting liquidated now. And whereas this town falls under an exemption, and the mayor himself has said, we need short-term rentals. We don't have enough motels, hotels, or anything that people want to stay in. So he's going to keep it, you know, Airbnb friendly in that province. So there's some opportunities to really maximize cash flow on the short-term side of things. The average income for a resident of Princeton is around $56,000. So a household over $112,000 if you've got 2 people that are working full time. There is obviously people who come in on contract with significantly higher income. The vacancy rate is less than 1%. And Princeton is only offering, the Princeton Point is only offering 150 new homes to help, you know, solve that problem. And obviously it's not going to be enough. And over the last from January 1st to July 2023, according to the Okanagan Real Estate Board, Princeton Point has had a 21.8% benchmark increase in the price. So there's absolutely appreciation happening here. And that's because of the sheer lack of inventory in this market specifically. So we talk about what's causing the GDP growth, what's causing job growth. Well, again, I mentioned the mining. So copper mining recently was acquired by Hudbay. One of our clients was talking to some locals. And of course, every once in a while you have those NIMBYs, not in my backyard. They said, oh, the mine's dried up. There's no work there. But when you call Hudbay goes, oh, no, absolutely not. We're actually increasing the number of jobs that we're offering right now. We're looking for more people because we can't keep up with the demand for the mine. And the mine has at least 30 more years minimum of copper left in it. Forestry is huge in BC in the interior. So there's the Weyhauser sawmill employs 250 people. There's a value add sector with another 110. There's the Princeton Community Forest Corporation, Vermilion Forks Community Forest Corporation. There's a lot when it comes to forestry in the area. Big, obviously, employer right now is the industrial hemp. BC Green Pharmaceuticals has some large facilities out there. Construction, there's a ready mix plant of concrete and other construction materials that are created in Princeton. Even their tourism, people don't just stop now, fill up their gas and go on. They actually stop and hang out in Princeton because there's a lot of things to do when it comes to outdoor stuff, fishing, camping, and of course, their most recent thing, the bronze sculpture capital of Canada. People actually come, the amount of selfies that I took while I was there trying to catch all the bronze sculptures, ranching and livestock, and then obviously people selecting a place to live on lifestyle and not economic reasons because it's still fairly affordable. People coming from the lower mainland wanting to go to a place they can afford, have a bit of a yard, and enjoy life out in the mountains. So this is what the early access pricing looks like. Now, this project is nearly 50% sold out already. However, the relationship we have with the marketing company, they said they're going to honor the early access pricing for our clients. We got about 10 people that jumped onto this opportunity right away. So you can buy studios right now for $269,900 starting price. They go up from there. One bedroom's about $340,000 and two bedrooms at about $420,000. Now, if you're thinking, man, I'm coming from Alberta and I'm buying, a detached house for $500,000, you got to keep this in a perspective that this is still BC. It's still within driving distance to Vancouver. And I have studios right now that are smaller than these properties selling in the 400s in Langley. So the pricing here is really good. But what's more than that is that these properties do cash flow. So when you look at the long-term rentals, the cash flow is still fairly minimal. You're going to make a, $50, $70, $100 here. However, the opportunity with the short-term rental at $150 a night for a one-bedroom creates a huge opportunity for people to cash flow. Now, this is also, when I did my numbers, I went a little higher than 60%. They did that for the purpose of keeping it conservative. All of these are very conservative numbers also, but I actually did an analysis here and take a look at what kind of cash flow you can get in this town for a condo. You're purchasing a one-bedroom unit with GST in it. That's about $356,985. We assumed a mortgage of 80% at 4.89, so we're a little higher on the mortgage because we like to be super conservative. If you get a better rate, obviously it increases your cash flow. We ran it on $150 a night at 70% occupancy, so not fully occupied, and yet a lot of these people coming on contract, they might stay there for 6 months straight. After property taxes, insurance, property management, we have property managers lined up for Airbnbs at 18%. Utilities, repairs, cable internet, Airbnb fees, strata fees, supplies, and of course your debt servicing, you're still left with a positive cash flow of $457, which is unheard of in and around Vancouver. Normally you'd be lucky to get $100 if you find a really steal of a deal. To get into a project like this, it's just about $95,000. That includes fully furnishing out the one bedroom. After your cash on cash return of $5,104 with your cash flow, mortgage pay down about $4,296, and of course your appreciation. We only used 3% for this because we like to keep it super conservative. We're looking at about a 23.28% return in 1 year on this property, but that is only after the project has actually completed. Again, this is pre-construction and it's going to take about 18 months to 2 years for it to complete. So in that time, there is an opportunity or a chance that that property could increase in value. Now, I will preface this, and I preface this always, you have to be prepared to close when you're buying pre-construction. Too many people buy pre-construction projects with the hope that the value is going to go up and then they're going to flip the contract and make buckets and buckets of money. And while that has happened in certain markets, you can't guarantee what's going to happen 2 years from now. So always be prepared to close, always be prepared to get a mortgage in about 2 years. But here's a few more incentives that are available for our clients. Deposit structure, 2.5%. Where have you heard a 2.5% deposit structure anywhere else? I can't find that in the Lower Mainland. Now, that's within 7 days of writing. Of course, it does scale up like many projects, another 2.5% in 90 days after writing, and then 5%. So within 8 months, you're doing about 10% deposit. But that initial 2.5, I mean, on one of the studios, it's like $6,000. It's less than the total contribution you can do into it to the home what's the word here, Isack, the home investment savings program there. So you could do a $7,000 investment there, or you could put it into a project there. Either one is good. So, you know, it's up to your guys' investment style. 0% assignment fee if you do decide to assign. If the market allows for you to get out and make a profit, then there's a 0% assignment fee, a $1,500 admin fee. Estimated completion is spring 2027. All homes include 1 parking, and 33 cents a square foot is the estimate for the strata fees. So that is why I wanted to show this to you, because we want to start identifying these emerging markets. Where is the next opportunity where you still have the proximity to get that ripple effect from the large global city like Vancouver, but you can still participate in cash flow, have a good solid return on investment, and actually start to build wealth for yourself in owning real estate where you actually control the asset because you are the one who owns it. So that is why we're looking there. In conclusion, cash flow is just part of the investment of a property. There are multiple ways that you're making money. So it's important to actually look at the holistic approach to a property, not just only cash flow. Identify markets where returns are best and have the best chance for growth. And investing around Vancouver, you'll always do well in the long term, but it's the people who get caught with their pants down are the ones who are in and out in the 6 months to a year. The plan is hold long term. You'll always do very, very well. No different than when you saw the price differences with those 2 ranchers, or what you saw in that video at the beginning. Again, my name is Cameron Manning, host of the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. This is my socials. That's my contact information. Always happy to have more conversations. And Richard, again, really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your group here. I hope you guys found some value there.
Yeah, definitely, man. Thank you so much for, going into detail, with the property there. And even just the whole understanding of why it makes sense, why properties like that make sense. And I think that's definitely something that a lot of people were not thinking about. It definitely opened up my mind as well, because, of course, everyone's thinking cash flow, but you got to look at, all the different avenues, of how to grow. I have a question about that development there, right? Because I know right now in, obviously, Alberta, a lot of them have rent, like they have rental guarantees, like where they'll put tenants in. I don't think that's the case for this because it's more short term, right? But like, in terms of the mines, the copper mines and stuff, like, do they have like employees that are like set and ready to go, right? Because my concern is that, yeah, let's say they do build it, and then like the people aren't moving in at steady pace. Even if they are in Vancouver, I don't know how far of a drive it is, but it's something that it seems like number one will be you'll need property management, and number two, obviously, someone to help you get them tenanted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that the development has put into place is that there is a property management company that is in Princeton. So they're already in the area, in the market, as well as they've connected with someone who's a specialist on managing Airbnb. So depending which side you want to go on, if you want to go straight rental, absolutely, they've got property management available. If you want to go with the short-term rental to maximize your cash flow, they've got that solution there. The conversation with the mines right now, because the location of this property is about a 15-minute bus ride from the mines. And so they're already in conversation with the mines to have a bus stop in front of this property where people who are staying in the complex can actually just jump on a bus, head to work, get driven right back to the property. And the mines are actually looking to potentially rent out an entire block of units. That's in discussions right now, so that the mines actually are your tenant and they control the ability to put people in and out of those units as necessary.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's just like what Serena was talking about in the U.S. How, with the certain properties, when your tenants are businesses, those are the rents you want. When it's actually the business that is actually paying that for that employee, or at least housing them, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the
Yeah, I mean,
strategy with this project, it seems like.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the strategies for sure. And I mean, even the fact that there's so many people coming in on contract for the other industries as well, forestry brings in a lot of people on contract. Again, nurses coming into the area. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues that we have had as investors with the government's decision to massively restrict access to Airbnb. We used to have a ton of travel nurses coming into our Airbnbs, and now suddenly they're having to go pay hotel rates, but the hotels, smart for the hotels, suddenly now there's less competition. The rates have gone through the roof. I mean, I know people who came in for the Taylor Swift concert, and they were paying more per night than they were for the tickets that they got for the concert. So,
Wow.
it's one of those situations where it's super unfortunate that the government went that way, but it creates opportunities if you know where to look to maximize your cash flow and take advantage of the government's inability to govern properly.
Yeah, a new government soon. But yeah, thank you so much, Cameron. Before we fully sign off, are there any questions? Anyone have any questions for Cameron? The floor is open. Right now, while he's in front of you, get some insight from him. Get some understanding in terms of what's going on. If you look all around, even if you're in Alberta or these places right now, maybe you're not at that peak point yet. But I definitely see it here in the GT region, and I like that the growth chart that you have, because it's true. The GDP, then you get jobs, then you need people to stay, and then they want to buy. It's like a process that everyone's going through. So now that you have that in your mind, you could be in one of these steps yourself. And for an investor, paying attention to that. And I definitely know, like with Vancouver and even where I'm at, one of the main things that people say when selling is, oh, if I sell this house, where do I go? Because the prices are overpriced. So it's same thing with Vancouver. Right now it's overpriced, but now there's something that, is actually something for you to attain. Andy, I see you got a question.
Okay, if you wanted to invest in one of those units, I saw you had, 5% down, you said $6,000. How does that exactly work until it comes to term? When do you need to be approved for a mortgage? Like they're just taking your money, and then are they taking your word you're gonna get a mortgage in 2 years from now? How does that process work?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we do a significant amount of work in the pre-construction market. A lot of investors, it's kind of the one way you can kind of get into these markets. So how it works here in BC is that you have a contract, no different than if you're buying a house. And when you're buying a house, you have to put a deposit down, right? So it's the same concept, but it's a developer's contract. And the developer is basically saying, okay, we promise that we're going to deliver this project by X number of time. And you're going to put down your deposit, hold a firm contract, and you promise to complete on that contract. No different than if you're buying a regular house, right? You have a contract with a deposit and a completion date comes up. Well, you better be closing on that, or there's, breach of contract. So when do you need to get the mortgage though? So that's a little bit of a different thing here in BC than, let's say, Ontario. And Richard, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I've had some conversations. And a lot of times with the developments in Toronto, you actually have to get proof of financing before you can actually buy one of those projects, even if you're not closing on it for 2 to 5 years. Is that correct still?
That's correct. Yeah. You have your 10-day period. And within that 10 days, you have to have a firm mortgage commitment, most of them from an A lender. They want it from an A lender, mortgage commitment on paper that they could validate. Yep.
Yeah. So here in BC, it's a little different. So we have what's called a 7-day right of rescission. So instead of 10, it's 7 days. I call it your get out of jail free card. You write your contract, you sign everything, and you review everything you can about the developer, the development. You get a disclosure statement, review your contract, have lawyers look over it. On day 7, you have a choice to either walk away from the project or you put your deposit down and firm your contract. So in this case, it would be the initial 2.5. Now you're responsible for paying the additional 2.5, then the 5%. Now, when it comes to a mortgage, you don't actually have to have that in BC ready to go until the project is done. So in some cases, these pre-sale projects in BC are good for someone who's getting into the market and needs some time to establish, credit history, or they've got longevity at their jobs. For investors, it can also be a double-edged sword, right? A lot of investors, they invest in something and then they forget that they got to go out and get a mortgage, and they bought 2 or 3 other properties. Now they can't qualify. So that's why I always say you got to make sure if you're investing in one of these, plan A is to, in 2 years, get your mortgage and close on the property. And plan B, if the market has grown and it makes sense and there's ability to sell quickly, then you can assign it and make whatever profit and get out of the property. Now, one of the things that everyone needs to understand when it comes to pre-construction here in BC is that you are protected by the laws here in BC. So if for whatever reason you buy into this project and a year, 2 years from now, they cannot deliver the project because whatever's happened. Now, this recently happened in Richmond, which is devastating, but at the same token, your deposits are protected here in BC. The Real Estate Development Marketing Act means that the worst case scenario is that the contract, they've got what's called a contract end date, that if they go past that end date, you are entitled to your deposit back. That's the only remedy, unfortunately, is that you get your deposit. So really what you have is a lost opportunity cost because your money was tied up. Now, luckily, a lot of the developers that we have worked with over the last 8 to 9 years, we have only had that happen once. And immediately they said, yep, send us your notice that you want your deposit back, and they paid it back right away. There's a situation that's in the papers right now at a development in Richmond, and this one's kind of crazy because it was a multi-phase, massive development, and suddenly they got to the point where the pre-sales were done. They started doing the digging. You have these massive holes on the ground, and that's where it stopped. And 2 years go by, and investors start saying, "Well, what's going on? What's going on? Why is we're not seeing any construction?" Well, it was an offshore company. So that's one thing is, really do your due diligence on the developer. Make sure that they have built here in BC, no different, Richard, than, making sure they've built in Toronto probably. You don't want someone coming in and doing a one and done. These developers had some sort of issue with the financing coming from overseas, and they decided, okay, we're not going to build. And so all these people are now stuck. It's a 5-year build time. They're only 2 years into it. And they said, well, if you're not going to build, can we get our money back? They said, no, you'll have to wait till the end date. So unfortunately, that's the biggest risk because people have to wait to get their deposits back. So, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we only had that ever happen on one development. Luckily, we only had one person in that development. So,
all right.
So what happens when the end date comes and this company is gone? Does that money actually get held in a trust somewhere where they can't touch it? So you definitely get the money back?
Yeah, so there's 2 ways that it's handled. One, the money goes in trust with a lawyer, so it is held in trust. So they cannot access that capital unless they go through an insurance plan. So a lot of developers will go and get an insurance policy on those deposits, which then allows them to unlock it and they can use it for construction or whatever. So that insurance policy then protect the buyers in case anything happens from the developer. So.
All right.
But when it comes to investing in pre-construction, I always say the biggest risk when it comes to pre-construction is that you can't perform at the end of it, and then if you can't close, the developer comes after you for breach of contract. There is, luckily, sometimes BC can have almost too much regulation, and then at other times that regulation is there for a reason. And in the case of the Real Estate Development Marketing Act, there is a lot of protections for investors in pre-construction.
Right. That's what it's about, man. Cameron Manning, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all of our speakers today. We went through 3 hours, and it seemed like 3 minutes. Like I said, every speaker came information packed. All right, and this is something that we do on a monthly basis. And all of our speakers are welcome to speak again and in our future sessions. And everyone in attendance, come on board, invite your friends or family. Look at everything that you learned today. Now you can go out there and you could make a lot of money. So thank you everyone so much. Cameron, you already gave your details how to reach you, right? But you could put in a chat if not, but we'll also be posting it out there. We'll be posting snippets and everything like that. So, and as well as the replay for this, for everyone to get as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your time. God bless. All right, bye. Have a good night.